Will be a special episode. I know it's been a while since we've broadcasted to you guys. We were upgrading our set, as you can see, trying to raise the quality of what we are doing here at the Sunnyside podcast for you, the listener, to bring you better solutions, just to raise the bar with everything that we're doing, the guests we're bringing on, the resources they're providing the community and everything else. Today's episode won't be different on that front, but it will be unique because we're coming to you live, as you can see. It's taken us a little bit to try to get that under control. And we also will be returning to a previous episode that we did about decoding Kwanzaa, where we were investigating some of the symbols, the language, some of the cultural principles behind Kwanzaa. And on that episode, we did some interviews with some of the elders who really represent Kwanzaa and the Kwanzaa events to the Chicago community, because they lead a lot of events and they're always represented at these events. And they wanted to come on after seeing that one and give a clearer perspective and representation of where they stand with Kwanzaa and how they understand it. So we're happy to have them. But for all of those listeners and viewers who are following the Chicago Sunnyside podcast, you know that we also just opened up a series on community protection and how we are protecting our communities, our children, from the violence, from the destructive forces that are going around Chicago and around really the country of the United States, the world in general. And so these brothers are also instrumental in community protection, and we will speak to them a little bit about that before we finish. So we're glad to have you. I'm Nehez Meniooh. I'm going to pass it to Kasabez Maakmaah to introduce our guest.
Yes, and before I introduce our guest, good evening, everybody, and everyone who's watching. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe to our videos and hit the notification bell so that you can get notifications of when we're going live or releasing a recorded video. We will also be now releasing new content on a regularly scheduled basis on the 1st and 15th of every month. So make sure to tune in twice a month for the Chicago Sunnyside podcast. Without further ado, our esteemed guests today are Baba Nubian Malik and Baba Osei. Are you still going by Sankara?
We'll use Sankara. Yeah.
Okay. So,
that's what I go by. I don't know what they go by.
Right. Who are also members of the Bolozi Wazee Council of Elders here in Chicago. And in addition, Baba Nubian is also, he's a firearms instructor, has a company called Abain. Mm-hmm. Okay. And Baba Osei, I know you also do some programming, but you could tell us a little bit more about what you guys do as well. You can probably more adeptly introduce yourselves, but I know that I always see you guys at our cultural events around the city, especially Kwanzaa events. Baba Nubian is like the official Kwanzaa host.
It's true. It's only brother.
and Osei is he's always representing as well the culture. So but in terms of getting more into what you guys do individually and together with the Bolozi Wazee, could you let our listeners know a little bit about that?
So if I may. Yeah, so the Bolozi Wazee, first and foremost. The Bolozi Wazee is a group of elders that was originally called together by Baba Hannibal Afrique, which was a part of the Shule Yawatoto School for Children. And so what we do now primarily as a council is that we maintain the cultural integrity of Kwanzaa, being our primary piece that we find ourselves doing that work now. But we also make ourselves available for naming ceremonies, marriage ceremonies, rituals of that nature. and as well as just a voice inside of the community, a well-established seated voice with track records as elders, those of us that have been doing this work for a while. Anything you want to add, Bolozi?
I just want to add, you touched on it a little bit, that it was started by Baba Hannibal Afrique, who was a very well-respected elder here in the Chicagoland area, had been working in the community almost before we were born, I guess. Yeah. And was somebody that we saw as an elder, someone we saw as a teacher, as a respected educator in all ways. I mean, he was actually a teacher in the Chicago public school system for over 30 years at Tilden High School, at Farragut High School, Farragut High School on the west side. And he was about teaching from experience. And so his creation of the Bolozi Wazee was him saying, hey, we need to have a group of people that have seasoned their experience in the community and can serve as some type of both an authority, but also as for counsel. And so he fashioned that after this concept of an elders council, traditionally from off the continent of Africa, and him being installed as an elder in Ghana also gave him agency to be able to do this from an authentic standpoint. Okay. And he named me Osei, named a number of people within the city of Chicago and around the country, around the world, and also did marriage ceremonies. But he was seeing kind of the writing on the wall. He always told us, as we were educated under him, I'm not always going to be here. So how do we create an institution of this, right? So he said, I can do this, and I've been doing it, but it can't just be me. It has to be a group. It has to be, from a true African sense, a collective. And so that's what the Bolozi Wazee represents, is that collective force, that collective unit that is, again, charged with this duty of maintaining cultural integrity. And so it's not just one person sitting on high saying, hey, I'm going to decide what this is, but really trying to come together and build a collective understanding.
And the other thing that you two are both involved in, or have been involved in, which I know you for, is the Survivor Training Camp. Is that also something Baba Hannibal had started?
Actually, yes. Okay. So he was a military man. He said he's a soldier. I remember saying that a number of times. And he said, and he along with other people, it wasn't just him, but he along with other people said, we need to prepare ourselves, because the reality is, and we're still seeing evidence of this every day, right, where we as a people are not prepared. When they decide to shut stuff down, what do we do? Where are we going to get our food from? How are we going to have some type of energy? How are we going to be able to eat? How are we going to be able to get around? And so his first, the organization that he helped create out of that was called the Outdoor Leadership Skills Project. And that was a group of people that came together saying, we are going to teach ourselves the things that we don't know about how to survive. And then those of us who have learned skills either through the military or through the way they were reared or what have you, and start sharing that. This is knowledge that needs to be spread out. And so Baba Nubian was one of my comrades and also one of my instructors. And we've continued to do this in his spirit. Change some things, because I mean, some of the things we learned back in the 70s and 80s and 90s have been updated, and so, but making sure that those same concepts are transmitted. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Bob.
No, the only thing I would add to that is that one of the other names that was associated with developing it was a brother by the name of Nick Howard. Nick Howard background was, I think he was Vietnam Special Forces or some type, maybe Green Beret, but he added that component of wilderness, the wild food foraging, the water treatment, and all of that. And so it's probably fair to say that he gave it that dynamic, and then Baba Hannibal gave it the organizational structure, dynamic, and the spirit behind it. And it's that spirit behind it that still have a large group of the brothers that worked with Baba Hannibal and that still working together now at this point, probably about 34, 35 years later. And that was from when I came in.
Right.
So there's some brothers that was there before us that's still around, that's still doing the work.
Right.
And Baba Hannibal passed away, right?
Yes, 2011.
Okay, 2011.
Yes, sir.
Because I'm from the West Coast. I'm not from Chicago.
Okay.
But even coming out here in 2004, I had the privilege of meeting him before he passed away. His brother graduated at the Earth Center he was a student of him. So he took me there and took me to his house, and we got to sit down with him. So I know that was a very powerful elder in the community. And it's great to be able to call up his name on the show.
Yes, sir.
On this episode. So that organization where he was doing the arms training and the wilderness survival, that training, that came about before the Council of Elders, right?
Before the Council of Elders, yes. But he was also part of that initial movement to celebrate Kwanzaa, both in the city of Chicago and around the country.
Okay.
Because there was a group of people that were, I mean, we romanticize it sometimes, but we don't understand that how all this was intricately connected, both in good ways and bad ways, through the 60s and 70s. And so he came out of that tutelage, if you will. So he came out of having been exposed to things such as, I mean, we all hear now, and most younger people understand a little bit about the Black Panthers, but he was also connected to the Republic of New Africa, connected to the US organization, connected to the UNIA, right? And so all of those forces were kind of all playing together at the same time. Again, sometimes not so friendly. And he was there, knows Maulana Karenga, the creator of Kwanzaa, and was one of the, again, first progenitors, if you will, celebration of a citywide Kwanzaa celebration here in Chicago. So this is all, again, interwoven. A lot of the same people that were doing survival were doing Kwanzaa, that were connected to the UNIA. So it was I would say a larger village, if you will, that was happening at that time.
And that's in what, the 60s, or it came to Chicago? And what?
Well, the celebration of Kwanzaa started here in 60, was it 71? I think it was, I'm hearing.
71 sound familiar.
Yeah.
And maybe
even
as
earlier.
early as 68. I'm just trying to hear Mama Sarah's voice right now. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm not the one to put anybody on the spot to call up a year, because if you ask me about that, there's no telling.
Right. Well, we know the first Kwanzaa was 66, 1966.
Yeah, right.
That was out of California on the West Coast. And it spread slowly.
Okay.
And so I would say there were probably like strongholds where it took root very, very seriously. Chicago being one of those. Chicago. Yeah, in the late 60s, early 70s.
And Baba Hannibal
was definitely part of that. So we have to put in context also. So Baba Nubian mentioned the Shule Ya Watoto. Shule Ya Watoto was part of that same movement. That was a movement where people said, we can educate our children better than anybody else. And we can do it independently, not with any government funding, not with any chains, if you will, that educational system brings. And a lot of those schools that started under the umbrella of the Council of Independent Black Institutions, which was kind of an offshoot, or it wasn't kind of an offshoot, it was directly related to the US organization. And it brought with it that same culture, that same understanding, that same let's reach back to understand who we are and then make that part of our curriculum. So he was the founder of the Shule Ya Watoto, again, with a number of other people, young at the time, right, that said, let's do this. And so it became these kind of parallel tracks, right?
That we've seen all across the country.
Exactly.
Simultaneously.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And so what year did you guys start working under or learning from?
Brother, if I said that, you'll have a good idea
how old we are, right?
We're already 29.
Right, that's the number we're running with. Yeah.
Sticking to our story.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, but in real life,
that'll make me and this brother about 19.
There you go.
I came in around 90, maybe 91. In fact, we were just talking about this the other day.
Yep.
Yeah, so about 90, 91.
Yep, that's about it.
Met Baba Hannibal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, same with me, 91.
First Bulls championship here, yeah.
And so at that
What was that?
Oh no, I said first Bulls championship.
right. Oh my gosh.
spoken like a real Chicago lander.
Yeah.
So at that time, Baba Hannibal, can you kind of set the stage for what it looked like at that time, what he was really doing, what he had set up when you entered as students?
Well, Baba Hannibal, again, had established already the Outdoors Leadership Skills Project. At that point, he was also Shule Ya Watoto was, as a lot of the CB schools were struggling because they were all privately funded by Black community members, right? And so you talk about early 90s, late 80s, Blackness in some regards had worn off, and it was not becoming it wasn't as popular as it used to be. And so the support for those type of institutions wasn't happening. So Shule Ya Watoto was struggling, but in Chicago you still had a fairly strong, bring it back to Kwanzaa, a fairly strong Kwanzaa collective. So you had a citywide celebration, but it was different organizations that had different celebrations. So you had Itango doing Umoja, you had Shule Ya Watoto being Kujichagulia. It was the West Side location over there that did the Ujima
And at that time, was it organized? Like they knew, okay, we'll take this day.
Yeah, it was. And it was a citywide calendar that actually NBUF kind of helped manage. And then NBUF, National Black United Front, actually put together this calendar, and everybody knew where to go every day, right? And then I think the only day that wasn't covered at that time was like Kuumba. I think Kuumba was the only thing that didn't have anything official. And then the last day, Imani, was the Karamu ya Imani, the feast, and that was what NBUF hosted at the time, and that was over at Kennedy King College. And you would walk in there, it's like, wow, you thought you was in an African village, you know. And they had food for everybody, and it was dancing and music and vendors, and it was a celebration. And that was kind of what I came into, and that's where I first heard Haki Matabuti speak. That's where I first, saw some African drummers that have been, around the community for a while. Got exposed to, the books like Dr. Chancellor Williams, Dr. Ben. I mean, this it all happened in that space, right? And then in about 90, 91. And that was actually a little later, 92, I think, was when Baba Hannibal brought it to Malcolm X to say, hey, because NBUF had kind of fallen off in coordinating. Some of the organizations were kind of not really doing it as the way they were. Yeah. And so he came to Malcolm X College, and that's when he approached Mama Zeri Campbell, who was the president at the time, and she said, yeah, we could do that.
And why do you think that was? Why do you think some organizations were falling off? Was it more of a labor of love when it got started, and it turned out to be not?
Definitely. It was definitely a labor of love. Again, coming from the 70s, right. Kwanzaa was very small. Kwanzaa was done in people's homes, right? Yeah. And so it was when these organizations stepped forward and said, well, we can make this bigger. We can get more people into the fold of Kwanzaa. But it was really, for lack of a better term, it was the nationalistic Pan-Africanist community, right? So it was still somewhat smaller in regards. Whereas when they went to Malcolm X and Dr. Zeri Campbell said that we can do this and it can make it popular, we can find a way to fund it, and it can be entertaining, it can be educational, it can be a way to build up black economics, and that's when it really took off. And everybody and their mama, if you will, said, hey, we're going to Malcolm X, and for what, 15, 18 years?
Yeah, it was for a while. I just want to on what he's saying, that when it fell off, you got to remember that this was during a time where being black had kind of went to sleep.
Right, exactly.
Right, there was a lot of shift in our collective paradigm to where being that just absolute pro-black wasn't necessarily there anymore.
Right. But I'm trying to play this
because we had our first black president, right?
This is way
Bill
Clinton.
but I wasn't going to reach for Bill Clinton. What year did Malcolm X come out?
The movie, right.
That kind of, awakened in the youth.
That was, 90? Was that 90? No, that was 90. It was a little later. It was like 92, 93, I think. Yeah, so I can't remember.
Maybe right after.
Right, after that, yeah.
And I think that it's important because this was the difference that you could see in the Kwanzaas around the city. Malcolm X College Kwanzaa pulled a lot of new people that was looking at Kwanzaa for the first time.
That's right. That's right.
And so I'm going to leave that at that. Kwanzaa, where Baba Kwesi, Ronald Harris was doing, where he was doing it at rather Chicago State or...
It was first, it was Olive Harvey.
Or Olive Harvey.
Right.
He had all of the old diehards that was always there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so you was able to see this difference in who would be at which Kwanzaa.
That's right. That's right.
And so with that, when it slowed down, if we can use that term, it was because it just was not that many people still, even like with the Malcolm X piece, right? Malcolm X piece gave rise to black, militancy. Yeah. It didn't give rise to black culture, in which Kwanzaa is a cultural piece to a large degree, right? And so as young people was gravitating towards Malcolm X and the whole X thing and all of that, it was really about militancy at that point. And so that was the difference. You would never really necessarily find that element inside of Kwanzaa per se. Right. There's always people who practice militancy within Kwanzaa, but Kwanzaa as a cultural holiday have always brought in more people that was culturally relevant, if you will, than militant. And so that's the difference between those two times as I look at it.
And let me just add to that too, kind of trying to answer your question. Because I was on a college campus in the late 80s, right? And so I was down in Champaign, Atlanta, and I was trying to get out, and I met I met people from the All African People's Revolutionary Party. I met Steve Coakley here in Chicago, and then I went down to Atlanta to the King Center as a trying to practice Kingian nonviolence, or at least understand it, because I didn't understand it. Okay. And people on there were actually setting stuff on fire, not literally, but literally with Coretta Scott King. People getting up on the stage saying, "We want to learn more about what we haven't been told about the Black Panthers." So there was a kind of a quasi movement happening, a resurgence, so to speak, that was happening in the late '80s and early '90s. And then I'll speak to U of I's situation. Actually, one of our guys was down there. I don't know if there's a guy, he's a comedian. Man, I just dropped his name. I'll think of it. Donsham is his last name, but we started to hear some of these things and experience some of these things, and then say, well, let's try to find out for ourselves. And so this was happening on our campus and a number of campuses. There was a group in Atlanta called Kemet that was, again, part of this resurgence. There was something kind of like popping up all over the place, and we started bringing in some of these speakers, right? We started bringing in Kwame Ture. We started bringing in Sister Soldier, and Farrakhan was popular at the time, right? As far as trying to come on campus. And
that's in the colleges where you were in Illinois.
Where we were in Illinois, it was happening in other places as well. So, like, I remember going to ISU. We heard Angela Davis, and we had Asher Kwesi. We were bringing him in. We were bringing in Dr. Ben. So that's kind of, I think, what helped spark this new interest. That when a lot of us left the campus, we came to Chicago. It was like, okay, what y'all doing? Oh, we're doing Kwanzaa. Okay, all right, let's find out about Kwanzaa, and that brought some of that militancy into the talk piece as well. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. I can see that.
Yeah.
I follow. So from that time, Kwanzaa was really like the main cultural event to bring Black Chicago out.
Yes.
On the cultural piece.
Yes.
And that's why I really asked that question. It wasn't from any kind of...
can I add something to that? Real. Also, in addition, though, and this tapered off as well, was African Liberation Day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. African Liberation Day used to be big in Chicago and D.C. and some of the other major cities. And that was really pushed by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Because I remember marching down Madison Street from Austin all the way to the Golden Dome, and it was like all these people people don't know what the heck that was now. Right. So it was a couple things. Kwanzaa was just kind of on the rise. ALD was kind of starting to taper off as well. Mm-hmm. So almost like a generational thing, right? Mm-hmm.
And I was actually reluctant to mention AOD because AOD was focused on revolution versus this cultural piece.
True that.
And so again, you had people that subscribe to AOD that may or may not have even subscribed to Kwanzaa.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because to a large degree, there's a definitive line for a lot of people. This is how I do my blackness. I don't do my blackness like that. For real. Ain't no dashiki wearing.
And a lot of people, especially I would imagine, I'm not speaking for Chicago. I'm not from here, so I can't speak for it. But I've heard a lot of people, because I'm all about the culture.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of people quote Fred Hampton, who said revolution can't come out of the sleeve of a dashiki, right? Mm-hmm. True. So that's you see that a lot here in Chicago, where it's like, and I don't know if people really understand it, but it's like you're either standing on the side of the political revolutionary or the cultural revolutionary.
Mm-hmm. So I was a part of the Amos Wilson Institute, Dr. Amos Wilson, and in our book club, we understood that our movement was a three-front movement, three modes of struggle is what we used to call it. So you had the liberation movement, the unification movement, and the cultural restoration movement. And the problem with each of those is that they are very separated from the other. You got people that want to wear dashikis, don't want to learn nothing about no gun. You got people that wear a gun and don't want to learn nothing about no dashiki. You got people that's really about who and what they are and ain't caring about what nobody else is doing. So there's no unity, right? And so what we used to call for is for us as African people to see and to recognize that we need all three modes of that struggle to be effective.
True that.
Because if we fighting for liberation, and our liberation looks a lot like these white people's freedom, where if you got it, and if you don't, you're oppressed, right? This whole thing. Or if we just fighting just to wear a dashiki and speak Swahili or whatever, it just ain't enough, man. And so we need like all three modes of struggle. And so I can appreciate that you've seen that difference, because it's a clear cut difference, man.
Right.
You know, brothers and sisters that don't embrace dashikis, they serious about, you know what I'm saying, that other business. Them brothers and sisters that a lot of them that wear dashikis, no, brother, this is an educational. You know
right.
We can talk our way out of this type of situation. So, but yeah, without question, and you can see that very strong in Chicago. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've got a good amount of background on you guys and what you guys are coming from. But for sure, when we have been talking about bringing you guys on long before we even got to do this Kwanzaa episode.
Right.
Because, you know, I had you guys already in mind about, I think even during Kwanzaa, I mentioned to the podcast, at least to you.
Yes, sir.
But after we came out with our Kwanzaa piece in January, and you guys had what you had to say about it, you know, I thought it would be good to have you guys on to also talk about that, but also talk about the other things. But we don't want to, you know, just get lost in the other things. All the, you know, hey, there's a million things we could talk about.
No doubt.
That's right.
But I wanted to also,
and this doesn't have to be the only time.
No doubt, definitely,
of course, yeah,
definitely.
You know, but yeah, we did want to let's give you guys the floor. You know what I mean? I don't need to say a whole lot. Just, you know, with the episode that people, it was episode 12, I believe.
You'll know better than me.
That we talked about Kwanzaa, and you know, whatever it is that you had to take issue with, or whatever you thought you wanted to add context wise. I mean, you already obviously added some context for us, but whatever you want to add context wise, you guys have the floor.
Right. Did you want to start?
Yeah, so if I may, let me just first say Asante Sana. That's authentic Swahili. But that's thank you very much for just the opportunity to come back and have this conversation. Because we do take Kwanzaa very dearly, right? Yeah. Really do, and I guess my main thing, as I expressed to you, Baba Kasabez, was that if there was some challenges with Kwanzaa, I would have liked to prefer, right, that it would have been a separate episode versus it going over what it was that we was talking. So for those that have seen it, that was my challenge with it, right? Not problems, because I don't fool with problems. I wouldn't be here if it was a problem, right? So that was the challenge with it. Okay. And then some of the things that was said in there was loosely stated, if you will, right? Or did not have enough content or context to them, right? One of the things that more than anything, and then I'm going to turn it over to Baba Osei, is that the greatest thing that we can do as an African people is find opportunities to introduce African people back to them African selves. And we just do not have enough of that. And that's what Kwanzaa is for me, and so for you know, for so many other people. And I think I may have said that in that interview. In that episode, so again, we are about coming together, and if there are wrongs or incorrections, we can work on that. But this Kwanzaa becomes that piece that pulls us together, gives us that space that we can have these conversations in, because outside of that, we're not even having these conversations. And that's the beauty of Kwanzaa for me. You know what I'm saying? I think again that when you think about Kwanzaa, if we think about not if it's perfect, right? Not if it's perfect, not even how much imperfection it has to it, but just for its potential. And so that's kind of like my main piece, that we don't knock Kwanzaa. I'm not an advocate of Juneteenth by no stretch of the imagination, right? And my reason for that is that we celebrate Juneteenth as some type of national holiday, when we should really be holding these people accountable for getting 6 months of extra free labor for us. Why should we be celebrating that, right? And so, but there's a partner of mine that hosts a Juneteenth celebration, and I MC it for him. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like a team thing. And so instead of me, I ain't fooling with that because I don't believe in that. that gives us an opportunity to have a conversation
Definitely.
and some activities around it. So, but they go.
Well, let me just vent you back, as you say, off of that piece about Juneteenth, because also it gives us an opportunity to, it also gives us an opportunity to raise some of the contradictions or raise some of the issues that aren't being raised, right? So your point about how to get 6 free months, but also understanding that we have to change our paradigm, right? We have to understand that our ancestors that were captured against their will. They did not come here on the Love Boat or United Airlines. They came as tortured prisoners. And so we are descendants of prisoners of war, but they were human beings. They weren't slaves. They were people that had skills that were brought here for their skills, right? So let's stop talking about, we got freed from slavery. Let's be clear. We were in bondage. We were being held prisoner. And when we got free, we had the opportunity to do whatever we wanted to do, supposedly. And people always get me, well, you didn't vote. Your ancestors died to vote. No, our ancestors died to be free.
Right.
That's what they died for. And they thought some of them thought voting was the way. Well, where are we right now, right? So it gives us that opportunity to raise some of these contradictions and some of these issues during Juneteenth to say, okay, let's be clear who our ancestors were and that we need to start looking at how they wanted us really to be moving forward. Even though they were stripped of everything, stripped of language, music, instrumentation, spirituality, all of that. Their humanity, exactly. So that's why Kwanzaa becomes, again, that important piece of this. Isn't like you said, most people that came to Malcolm X, they were coming there for the first time to even think about the concept of them being African, right? And so one of the things that we looked at the video from the episode was that was really the premise. That was the premise to get people reintroduced, as you said, back to their African selves. And there were very intentional things that were done that in the time that it was done in the mid-late 60s may not have been the best choices, but they were choices. So Kiswahili was taken as an intentional choice. Why? I think you pointed out that it was spoken by many people. There is a Swahili people, but Swahili became the trade language.
Well, there's not so much a Swahili people.
Well, but right. But I hear you saying, right, it became a trade language, right? And so it became, and for that reason, it wasn't Yoruba, who's spoken by the Yorubas, who have tensions with the Igbo, who have tensions with the Hausa, who have tensions with the Akan or the Ga. Or when you get into tribal languages, you get into some of that, again, divide and conquer residual that happened, right? So Kiswahili was chosen, for one, because it was non-tribal. Two, because a lot of the concepts, and this is true in many African languages, that you have more concept of we and us, not I and my. Right? And that's throughout most of the languages, especially the Bantu languages throughout the continent, right? So that was the second reason, that it had a collective concept in general. But the bottom line was because we say so. Because we as black people, we decided how we're going to do it. This is how we decided that we're going to move forward, and we're going to choose this language. So since then, you see, even Maulana Karenga said, well, let's look at the Akan system. Let's look at the Akan language. Let's look at Meniooh. He's broadened his mind because more is available. But at the time, that's what he had. And if you look even back at some of the texts that were written either then or just afterwards, for example, because I know you talked to some native people from countries that speak Kiswahili as their national language. And one of the countries was mentioned was Tanzania. Well, the first democratically elected president of Tanzania, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, he put together his book, which was Uhuru and Ujamaa. And he said, this is the methodology we need to move forward with as our freedom and economic doctrine. And he was very clear that Ujamaa for him and for Tanzania meant this was a way for us to practice some type of economic system that was not based on, slavery / capitalism, but based off of a collective process. So some of these things, again, were brought in and part of that movement that was happening in the late 60s and early 70s, that even countries such as Tanzania, which I believe had, I'd say, a little more revolutionary perspective than maybe Kenya and some of the other countries that were kind of on the edge of, just kowtowing to Europe, right? So you had these are some of the concerns that we had, that were brought up, is that, they may not have spoken it, they may not have known some of these terms that were being used, but again, in the time when Maulana Karenga and his organization started putting this together, they said, well, let's find, as Maulana even says, let's find the best of African people. Let's try to find the best things, and they not translate exactly correctly, but let's at least start somewhere. Now, you also brought up his issues. Malana got issues, no doubt, no doubt.
And
okay?
they continue today.
And they continue today,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
I mean, but we got to give him credit for at least having developed this, despite all the issues he had, despite the torture of the sister he did, which is documented, despite the prison time he did and the drugs that were probably fed to him during that time, and despite when he left to go to prison. Amiri Baraka, who many people laud and love, came in and decimated the organization by saying, we're not doing that African stuff, we're going to go Marxist. And literally set hit squads out around the country to turn people from off of that African stuff into a Marxist-Leninist kind of perspective. So you got all this stuff happening at the time. And I think the creator for the creation of this thing called Kwanzaa, because it brought some clarity to me, even though it's not, again, specific to a particular culture. It's what our brother Dr. Kamal Rashid calls this cultural conglomeration, where we say, okay, we're going to try to pick the best and try to move off of that, and then maybe as we get deeper, we can find something to latch onto. But for right now, we don't even know, right? We don't even know who we are as black people, but if we can find some ways to attach to it, and that's what Kwanzaa gives us, a way to attach, in a way. And so I know that, again, myself as an example, and other people that I know who've come in, when Kwanzaa was their entree, they're like, okay, all right, maybe I am African. Maybe I can learn an African language. Maybe I can start, stop thinking about myself and what I need and what the community needs, and start thinking about how I can, not be creative just through dance and song, but my creation is the creation of another life and the creation of men and women in our community that can build our community back to what we saw as our traditional greatness and have faith in our traditional understanding of what the creator, God, whatever we call it, is, and how we can actually make our community and the world a better place. I just kind of summarized a couple of principles, right? So, but that's what we kind of had, concern, as you put it, or not problems, but concern, challenges, right? That we wanted to make sure that message got through, because again, it's not the end all to be all. It is not the answer. It's part of the solution. And we see ourselves as elders of the Bolozi Wazee, and it's still hard for me to tell myself an elder, but I'm only 29, so I'm trying to deal with this, right?
Old spirit.
Right, old spirit, no doubt. But as elders of the Bolozi Wazee, it is our responsibility to say, okay, let's leverage this, for lack of a better term. Let's tap into something that's been put out there, that's been created with all of its faults, right? And with all of its lackings, if you will, to say this is a foundation we can build on. And as you said, Baba, if there's stuff that's wrong, let's analyze it, let's talk about it, and let's try to fix it. So,
and I think it's important that we also remember Kwanzaa outgrew Maulana Karenga a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not here to bash Maulana Karenga. I think he do a good enough job of that for himself.
I mean, I hope the first episode didn't sound like we bashing Malona Karenga, because I said in the episode, everybody has their positives and their negatives. We're not holding that against anybody. Some people go through a whole criminal, career before they awaken, and then they want to do something for their community. Right. So we can't hold that against him.
Yeah.
We just brought it up because everybody brings it up, and that's the thing I want to point out, is that the Earth Center, the organization that we with, in doing presentations and supporting Kwanzaa events around the country, that's what we see.
Right.
Some people then are like, how can you even do that? Do you know what Karenga did?
Right.
How can you even do that?
No, I get that.
And then it's like, well, we have to say it, because if we don't say it, then people listening will be like,
you didn't bring it up.
You didn't bring it up.
Right.
You don't know about that?
Right.
It's better we bring it up. We say, hey, these are the issues. These are the problems that go, or the challenges that are going on with this holiday. But let's really honestly speak about it.
Right.
So I don't want to cut you off, bro.
And I can appreciate that completely. And that was my whole thing. I'm saying that had that needed to be done or wanted to be done, it could have been done in a separate episode.
I understand
because I got in touch with Baba Kasabez, and I was like, hey, you mind if I share this with some people? This is out there. I watched it, right? Mm-hmm. And this is a true story. This is the text, and he can attest to it. He was one of the people I sent it to. I said, hey, this is a podcast about Kwanzaa. I was interviewed, and a few other people was interviewed. After you watch it, let me know your thoughts about it. So I didn't leave them like, man, look at this mess, nothing like that.
right.
He did. Unanimously, everybody that got back in touch with me, some people including Baba Kamal, and people are busy, right? It took them a little time to get to it, but they came to the same conclusion. And so my thing, was just that it was like they should have probably split that and made that two different conversations, because yes, we do need to talk about the contradictions, you know what I'm saying, on anything and everything, right? But then let the celebration be what it could have been, because I think you did a beautiful job of the interviews and everything. And so I don't think that you played on anything that I said, you know what I'm saying, tried to make me look stupid or crazy or anything like that. Or Baba Kwabena, the brother from Indiana that you had on there, or the other people that was there on the thing. It was just that those things that you perceived as contradictions, everything with the colors, you know what I'm saying, if the red, black, and green, the language, you know what I'm saying, all of those kinds of things, I think could have just been done in a different way of possibly a separate discussion, Now, for years, I have been hearing about this Kwanzaa thing. Many of the contradictions dealing with Maulana Karenga. Do you know? Yes, I do. Do you? Yes, I do. Right. But again, this thing has been bigger than Maulana Karenga for a very long time. The people that made this popular, and Osei said it, just kind of glazing over it or whatever. He said that it was upheld by the National Pan-Africanist community. That's who gave life to Kwanzaa. Right. That's who and what gave life to Kwanzaa. And so it was these very same militant people in many instances back then, because you coming out of the 60s, doing that whole Black Power movement and that whole era of you know what I'm saying, off the pig and that whole kind of thing, we the people type of thing, right? And so they the ones who, when Maulana Karenga, however it was launched, if I could use that word, however it was brought outside of his immediate space, right? They the ones who brought into it. You know what I'm saying? There was people that came along before Baba Hannibal that even brought into it, even before he brought into it. Right. And so, and in them buying into it, it breathed life into it. And as Osei was saying before, it was among a very small group of people then. You know what I'm saying? And so just over the years, that it have really gotten this explosion of everything. And the beautiful thing about it is that a lot of this also coincided with the movie like Black Panther, Hollywood or not, right? And the CIA agent being the star of the show or whatever, all of that. We have to be able to catch black people, family, wherever we can, and then help them to understand what it is that they're looking at. Again, it outgrew Maulana Karenga. When Maulana Karenga, right, and again, not trying to bash him, but I was there that year that the stamp was dedicated through the post office. We don't do that, family. As we practice independence and sovereignty, and as we working towards independence and sovereignty, we don't give nobody the rights to anything like that. That's right. And since then, the post office have run amok with these Kwanzaa.
Can you explain that a little more for the listeners or the viewers that might not understand?
Yep. So Maulana Karenga is seen as he's actually the creator of Kwanzaa. We celebrate and acknowledge that, and so he takes ownership of Kwanzaa, right? If there's any one individual that I would probably say that would take ownership of Kwanzaa, rightfully so, it would probably be him. But it's also important to know that Karenga did not create Kwanzaa in a vacuum. He was with a group of people that created that. You see what I'm saying? And so whatever his contribution was, maybe at the time he was the leader, and so he got that type of credit. But we know, as we work in organizations, you didn't do that by yourself.
I think that brother said that in the episode. The brother
Kwabena?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And so, but in him taking a position as the owner of Kwanzaa, if you will, and that's my language, not his, right? He then went into agreement with the United States Postal Service to do a stamp honoring Kwanzaa. And so in this arrangement, he surrendered the concept of Kwanzaa. And again, I don't know what happened at the table, right?
I mean, you gotta admit the flags are there.
Oh, without question.
Oh, yeah.
There's question. And so the elders here in Chicago was so bad. South Shore Cultural Center was hosting Kwanzaa or pre-Kwanzaa or something every year. And for the most part, Karinga was coming in to speak for at least one day.
Right.
The elders was trying to make a decision, should we boycott this? Do we even welcome him into the city after doing this? Because that was criminal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That was criminal. You just do not do that.
Right.
And that was how the elders seen it. Mind you, these are the same elders that brought Kwanzaa to Chicago.
And that's what I want to ask, if I can. What do you know? What made them reach for that project of that group and say, okay, we're going to get behind this and try to take
Which project of which group?
Maulana Karenga and his group creating Kwanzaa, right? And then now they starting to trying to do it, but then now a national organization says, hey, we're going to get behind it. Do you know what was behind that?
Again, just going back to what tool can we use to help bring African people in? We have to understand that Kwanzaa is not a bad thing, regardless of who created it and regardless of how completely inaccurate some of the things may be in it.
Right.
It's not a bad thing. As Osei said before, there's black people that come through that Malcolm X College that not only would they question if they was African, that's a big leap. Many of them question if they even black. You know what I'm saying? And so you have to, and this in my estimation, I think was genius because there was so much African concept, even if it was slightly misconstrued in some areas, right? The principle, the ideal was there. And so this is what they latched on to because again, this is what Bob Hannibal often says, don't believe in people, believe in a principle. You know what I'm saying? And so the principles, how can you argue with Umoja, Kujichagulia, Ujima, Ujamaa, Neokuumba and Imani, right? So, you know, and then the English translation of it, as an African people. Those 7 principles, if we live them 7 principles throughout our lives every day for a full year, we will be able to see some things change for the African people. But because we do not, then we see us as an African people nationally and globally not doing what we can do. And so Kwanzaa overall is a good thing, you know, in my humble opinion.
Can I just add to veg back again? Because and I think we have to look at it as a tool, right? As a way, as a tactic. I mean, we're talking about war. Let's be clear. We're talking about war.
Definitely.
So this is a tactic in war. How do we win the hearts and minds? That's what they say. They want to win the hearts and minds of our people, right?
That's right.
So if we bring it forward now about 30, 40 years, the only reason we have the term that anybody knows of called reparations is because the same thing was done. Reparations, the conversation about reparations has been in the vernacular of black people for over a century, right? But how it came into modern times was there was an organization created, I don't know if you're familiar with it, called NCOBRA, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations America. That was started by some of those same elders that tapped into Kwanzaa, that tapped into the kind of both sides, cultural and revolutionary nationalist organization, one of them being Amiri Obadeli from Republic of New Africa. And he said it very clearly, we know these folk ain't gonna give us no money. We know they ain't gonna give us reparations. But what is it doing? It's raising the contradiction in the minds of black people who don't even see themselves as black or African, but they know that their great-great-grandmother was somebody's property and somebody's plantation, and that wasn't right. And they got thrown out into the wild, if you will, with no recourse or whatever. That ain't right. And their ancestors worked for free for generations. So that is actually, again, another tactic to say, let's raise this contradiction, as a result, raising people's awareness about what has happened to us, because that's the bigger issue, right? Not what we quote unquote are due, but how we were terrorized for over 400 years and how that still affects us today. And that's really what reparations starts to poke holes at, right? Whereas, you know, we watched the first iteration of Roots, we was all happy and great, living on the plantation. Every now and again, we got a whooping and got a foot cut off, but you know, the point being is that it was a tactic, a war tactic, to say, how do we win the hearts and minds? And so the two kind of go hand in hand as a way to, and so you're kind of, to your question about how did it happen, it was I think a tactical move. Hey, this is a whole kind of, again, maybe flawed, but a whole paradigm that's been developed as a way to leverage, and let's be clear about this, leverage that whole holiday season, right? Everybody's running out doing all this stuff, but that lull between Christmas and New Year's Eve, if we can insert something for 7 days up in that piece and leverage those days and talk about how we can attach it to something that is traditional, we got something. And I'm not saying they had that explicit conversation, but that's essentially what happened, right? And that's again, I think the genius of how it was brought in and how again it's been brought to our communities. And today you got people practicing, celebrating Kwanzaa all over the world, throughout the diaspora. It started here, and it was started here and I love the sister. I praise her for it, but I got to check it, right? It's a made up holiday. Every holiday is made up. Let's be clear about that, right? Every holiday, humans got together and said, we're going to celebrate this because of whatever is happening in the world. So this was made up. No question about that. It was made here in the United States. It's not from Africa, but its tenets, again, the Nguzo Saba, some of the practices come from different parts of the culture, but it was designed as a way for us to reattach and recommunicate and the inbringing and then reacculturize ourselves to who we are as African people.
Well, let me say my first introduction to Kwanzaa was from my grandmother. So she, around that same time in the early 90s, I believe, started doing little Kwanzaa dinners at her house and bringing the family together, and she would have little cultural gifts and things like that. And I just wanted to say shout outs to my grandma. She passed away last year. So I always look at little things like that planted seeds to get me to where I am now. And so I always appreciate Kwanzaa, the different people, scholars, and I guess we call them the warrior scholars who wrote the books that I started reading. Among them being Firefly, which Master Naba put out, the Rising Firefly magazine, Frontline magazine, Brother Marcus Klein. Lila Africa, the African Holistic Health, got me on my health journey, trying to get my health right. And, whoever you're looking at, you're going to be able to find flaws in a human being,
So I have a quick question, if I may.
Yeah.
I want to interject.
Okay.
Had your grandmother not introduced you to Kwanzaa at an early age, now let me back up because maybe I'm going ahead of myself. Was you working in black culture any at all prior to her introducing you to Kwanzaa?
Bro,
how old?
I was a little younger. You
gotta remember this brother's 19. You gotta remember.
Right. No, absolutely not. I was a kid.
Beautiful. My question for you then: would you be as a part of the Earth Center now had not you got that introduction to being African?
See, those are the questions you can't really answer.
Well, I can appreciate that.
And so it's like, maybe some way I could say it could have been introduced, but at the end of the day, it's part of the process,
part of the narrative,
that led me to where I'm at. So it's like,
that's my point.
That's why I always have to have an appreciation for it, because anything that can point you in the direction, direction, you start looking. You have to acknowledge that and give some appreciation. My thing is where, and I said this at that Kwanzaa event. Y'all were both there at Dusabo. And that I think what I see in our community a lot of times is that people will take these guiding landmarks or guiding lights or whatever, what the different things that I just mentioned, the holidays, the books, the organizations and things like that can point you in a direction, but then you actually have to go. I think a lot of us get caught into staying with the thing that's pointing us in the direction instead of actually going.
Right.
And so I value Kwanzaa because it continues to be the place where we can gather, we can have conversations, where we can introduce new people to things that they didn't hear about before, that they need to know about. And but I would like to see more of us, continue to take that additional step, and the additional step that I keep saying, and I want to really continue to say that, having been living in Africa for the last couple of years, the introduction that we get to African culture and principles through Kwanzaa and different publications and different community events that we do, African Fest and all of these things, is still like it's still a long way from the African culture actually.
No doubt.
Like there's so many layers to it that you really have to be in it, immerse yourself in it, for extended periods. And I keep saying that it doesn't have to be everybody, but if we can be organized and say, some of us need to be over there, some of us need to be over here. I think in African principles, we have those different. In a family or a community setting, you'll have people who need to stay home. Some people need to be sent abroad for different missions. And if you send abroad on a mission, you need to have the support. Just like in the United States, you have the military. You go overseas, you can be stationed somewhere else. You don't have like a real job. Like, could you imagine they tell the military, you out here fighting, but you have to have another job to be making money. They need to pay you. So, but we don't have that level of organization as a group. But we, these are the things I think we need to be trying to work towards as a community. And however it probably came off, at least it got us here to be at the table having this conversation, because I think these are the things that we need to be looking at. How to evolve beyond even Kwanzaa and the different tools that we're using to reach the public to reach our objectives that we still struggling to reach.
Right. Can I?
No, go ahead.
So in one of my other aspects of life, I did and still do a little work around now. What the buzz term is DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? But when I was doing, we call it anti-racism, and the organization I was working with, I was actually out of the West Coast, and this guy. He had put together this awesome paradigm, awesome pedagogy about how to deal with racism in white schools. And it was basically saying, until you bring your black boys up, you can continue to have these disparities, blah, blah, blah.
Simple as that.
Simple as that, right? And so, and he said that these districts would cry, basically, well, you're charging a lot of money. And the way he put it, it's the same thing. I think it's this analogy here, is that, well, look at all the damage you've done over the years that you've done. Look at all the work I got to do to fix this. So yeah, I'm going to charge you. This is going to cost you. And I think it's the same thing that we have to look at. We have been damaged as a people for over 500 years. Let's call it that, right? And so, but we've been on this.
You can go back further than that.
Oh, no doubt. But let's just start the modern era, right? Let's just deal with the pirate Columbus and all that, right? Just start there, right? Just that right there. But look at what we've done in the past, 60, 70 years, where now people are even saying, I'm black, or I'm African, I understand what happened, because I understand reparations, I understand what the torture happened. So we've come, I'll say we've come a long way, but we've come a way different than where we were in 1950, for example, right? So I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I agree. We need to create our own foreign service. We need to be sending back. We should be doing business. We should be doing exchanges. I mean, and I'm fighting for that in my own little corner of the world right now. I'm trying to say, how do we send more people over there and send more people back, just as a visitation piece, right? But that's how you start, right?
Of course.
And then starting with that, I mean, what is it? It was a quote, maybe Karenga. It's like, we cannot even conceive of winning the violent war until we've actually won the war of freeing the mind of our people, right? So how do we do that? It's exposure, education, all this. So I'm agreeing with you. It's going to take time, though.
Absolutely.
It's going to take time for us. And I don't know how much time, but people call me crazy because I'm going to talk about move to Africa. Like, you going to move to Africa? Okay, yeah. But if I could get 10 more people like me, then we'd really be saying something. So I agree totally that that's what we need to be doing. We need to be tapping into that historical, traditional, on the ground, in the bush, culture that we don't even know.
And I hear you speak French too, right?
But that's only because I couldn't learn Wolof. I couldn't learn Yoruba. I couldn't.
But that opens a lot of doors.
Of course, and that's why I use it.
Come to Burkina, brother. Come to Burkina.
Every time I interacted with somebody from Gabon, Cameroon, Senegal, I was in Senegal 2 years ago. I mean, I'm leveraging that
absolutely
at the same time. So I hear you. That is a way in, and that's why I made sure my children can at least understand French, because when they go to the continent, they can speak to somebody in Burkina Faso or Gabon or Mali. But the reality is we need to be learning the indigenous languages.
Absolutely,
right?
And like you said, it takes time and it's step by step.
No doubt.
We need to be talking about it.
No doubt, definitely.
It's not to down anybody, because if it's not for the pioneers such as you guys and those who came before you, where we even have a platform to even talk about the earth. You know what I mean? So where would the Earth Center have a platform for me to even know about it?
Right.
So,
right. Teach.
So that's it's out of the struggle, the continued struggle that's gone on for centuries.
No doubt.
That we able to have conversations like this, and you know.
What were you going to say, Bob?
So two things, maybe three. One, when we see these African leaders that y'all have on the flyer, and that we constantly talk about, as they continue to do work at home in their own homeland and welcome us back, more of us will be going back because of the stability, right? The call to come back home, right? Ghana had the return of the year of return. Right. And there was a lot of people at that point looked into returning to and repatriated to Ghana.
Yes.
So I see it happening slowly but surely. Right. You know, slowly but surely. The other thing I want to just drop in here real quick as it relates to the work that have been done. Well, I think it's worth mentioning that we remember or realize that Elijah Muhammad, Master Farah Muhammad, or whoever started calling the white man the devil, they turned black people minds around about the authority of white people in a single generation, brother. In a single generation. We as black people, went from seeing white men as one lady doing her enslavement said that the white man had the face of God, but the heart of the devil, right? And so Elijah Muhammad and his work got black people to see white people as the devil in one generation. It didn't take two, didn't take three. And that's you have to understand what that is. You know what I'm saying? That's from seeing somebody like, oh my goodness, to that one. You see what I'm saying? And that's a big difference because now I have a different relationship with them. You see what I'm saying? Right. Versus my savior, I see them as my problem, which is usually the case.
And let's not forget that Honorable Elijah Muhammad was educated by
Marcus Garvey.
Right.
Yeah, and so, so I just wanted to drop that in there to your point,
right? That
we have to get what we have, then we have to keep moving. You know what I'm saying? We cannot become stagnant. Yes. And this is the beauty of this type of conversation. There's an African proverb that says, running water moves stagnant water, right? And so these are the things that we have to talk about here and every place else. So again, raising the contradictions about Kwanzaa was not my personal challenge, right? Because who cares, right? Throw it up on the wall, as Dr. Anderson Thompson used to say, and whatever stick, let it stick, and everything else, let it fall down, right? And so, again, just appreciate the opportunity to come back here and have this conversation.
No doubt.
Well, we're very happy that you all came. I want to say something before we get really to what you guys are doing in the community to protect the community. I know we already talking about that on some front because, like you're saying, this is a war. And there's a lot that has to be done from many fronts to deal with the war of white supremacy, to deal with what has happened over the last 500,000,
5,000 years. Let's be clear.
But just like you're saying, it was a leveraging point. And yes, we can say, look at how much Kwanzaa's done. But we can also say, now what else could we have done if more holidays followed it?
No doubt.
And I just want to make sure that as a community, we are pushing on our community to see a bigger vision. Because any project you start in, any group you're working with, usually the self-sabotage we all do. You're trying to start a business, the vision is too small.
That's right.
And the thing is that Kwanzaa, we now going on 60 years.
That's right.
Of celebrating Kwanzaa. What holiday came next? What annual event came next? Right. Besides Juneteenth, which seemed to take us backwards.
Right.
So what, if it's a tool and an effective tool, where are the next steps? That's what we're looking for. What are the next steps? And because the truth is, if the vision can be bigger, I would like to argue a point that you said all holidays are made up. All holidays might be designated by people, but all holidays are made up when a calendar is made up.
I say
the calendar that we're using, it's not even connected to what's going on around us.
Right.
The original calendar our ancestors were using is connected to where the constellations
The heavens
are,
are,
where the
right,
stars
right,
are in reference to us. And so a holiday is going to be
recognizing that, right? No doubt.
So then there is a difference between one that's just said, hey, there's a good opportunity between this day and that day, 7 days we could fit, versus, hey, you know, this is when Earth is farthest from the sun. The elders will sit and say, we're going to have our people making sure they're doing these ceremonies to stay in harmony with that whole situation.
No doubt.
So that's a totally different holiday. And that's what we were doing.
Right.
So to look at it like all holidays are made up, let's just do this instead of, okay, we'll start with this made up holiday, but it'll get us back to what we were doing.
No doubt.
Because what we were doing is what brought civilization to the whole world.
No doubt. No doubt.
So definitely nobody can argue, and hopefully it didn't come across that on the first one. I know we made a lot of laughs and, you know, we could get sarcastic and all of that. I understand that. But hopefully nobody understood it to be like Kwanzaa hasn't been a benefit to the community, because every year you're going to see the Earth Center table out there because it gives us that platform.
No doubt.
Just like you were saying,
doubt.
it gives us that platform. But we also need to make the next step. It's going on 60 years, and we need to, if Swahili was a step, just like French will be a step to get you to an indigenous language, then we can take the next step and leave these Arabic influence behind, and leave this language that the church chose in Tanzania behind, and all of that.
Right.
So that's really the point. And the point was just that, hey, as young people who have grown up and benefited from the exposure that Kwanzaa type events have brought around the nation, you know, we didn't grow up in a time where there's no books you can go to. We didn't grow up in a time where even to talk this way, you got crosses burned in your yard. We didn't grow up in that time. We grew up in a time where people are coming together every year and then sharing information that they've gathered. And, you know, elders like Baba Hannibal are out here putting their necks on the line to make sure the next generation gets more. We benefited from all that.
That's right.
But those elders want the next generation to benefit, so the next generation can now take steps.
No doubt.
So you know, hopefully that's how that first episode comes across, and if it didn't, then it definitely will now. So we're very appreciative that you all came on the show.
Just very quick. So we have to remember two things. The first thing is that 66 years is not really a very long time, right? Or whatever number we're on. And that, again, Elijah Muhammad got us to thinking the white man is the devil in one generation.
Yeah, I was coming there next.
And that's really profound when you think about it. And so I look forward to hearing your feedback on it. But now, so as people is coming in dealing with Kwanzaa for the first time, finding out that they are black, finding out that they are African. This is the same thing like with Black History Month, right? I have a presentation that deals with that Black History Month just is not enough. And that's because of how we've been using Black History Month. And this is one of the things that the Bolozi Wazee worked so hard on as it relates to protecting the cultural integrity of Kwanzaa. You cannot have these corporate sponsors doing Kwanzaa because at some point it's going to be a hot mess.
Kwanzaa beef eaters.
Right. When we were doing Kwanzaa at Malcolm X College, Ziri Campbell, Nana Akua Sapong was her given name, worked diligently to make sure that our understanding of how Kwanzaa was to be practiced was practiced. And so we had people, and I won't name them, but we had different white groups that was sending us good money. She was clear, this can't be earmarked for Kwanzaa. We're going to move this to our graduation fund type stuff, right? And so big ups to her for that type of work, right? And that vision and that understanding. And so we have to fight for that. And what I was saying about Black History Month is that if we only use Black History Month as an opportunity to look at some dates and to look at some firsts, right, and that whole kind of thing, right. It will forever be problematic for us.
Definitely.
And it's the same thing if we're not careful about Kwanzaa. When you do a Kwanzaa, your Kwanzaa should have purpose. should have a theme, and so every year we have a theme. Whether we at Malcolm X College, do Sabo, wherever we do our Kwanzaa's at, it have a theme with a particular focus.
Yeah.
We identify people that have done work inside of the community and give them a Cultural Excellence Award, right? As MC, I make it every opportunity that I'm on the mic to teach. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I do use different languages when I'm up there and I tell people, your tongue is lazy, and I have fun with it and everything, but the message still come across so the people can understand this do not stop here.
Right.
You know, if you ain't got African clothes to wear to Kwanzaa, why you think that is? It's like one of the favorite things I like to say. It's because you ain't brought none. No more and no less. You ain't got no African clothes in your closet because you ain't brought none, right? You'd rather go wherever you shop at versus an African store. Or I open up with the how you African people doing? And there'll be a few people that, we right on, right? And I say, okay, how you black people doing? Then the crowd goes up, right? And that's when I take that opportunity to say, oh, if you black, whether you know it or not, you African. And so this is how, you know, we move past. And Baba James Anike, if you remember some years ago, he published a book that had about 4 to 6 different black holidays in it that again was created if they aligned with, you know, the rest of the universe or whatever. But the Kemetic Institute, as well as the group out of Columbus, Ohio, that I'm in a student elder with, I know that they have a New Year calendar that starts as it relates to a New Year versus what Baba Jake would call America's New Year, most un-African weather. You know what I'm saying? And how he used to say, how would you ever have a New Year in the dead of winter? Right. That ain't African, right? And
It's
so
it's not sensible.
right. And so we are family. We're moving. Maybe not at the rate that we would like to, you know, because we would all love to say in my lifetime. And we're all tired of saying not in my lifetime, right? But it's just the work that needs to be done. And you know how it is, man, when you're trying to wake somebody up.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a process.
It's
a process, and it's a process that, you know, has to happen on many fronts.
No doubt.
You know, all in their different paces. But that's really why we have to push from wherever we are. We have to push.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that because what you said about what Elijah did, what his movement did, it did that. Maybe not all across the board, but definitely for those in the movement of the nation.
Right.
But that will have to be a stepping stone too, because
what do you do with that?
When you look, what do you do with that? And when you look in Africa, all 4 of us are white in Africa.
No doubt. That's how we seen. You're right.
So now who? We the devil?
Right.
You will have to understand it beyond just that. And sure, it comes and it does its work. Right. But if it doesn't do its work to bring evolution in the mind, then it's like it will end up being a saboteur. It will end up messing people's mind up. Every one of us in this room is considered white in Africa.
That's right.
And
I'm
that's
gonna
the
take
thing
exception to that. Is this mic on?
He's telling the truth, though.
No, they definitely do not see you or understand you as a continental African.
And it's not even an issue. There are tribes in Africa that are just seen as the white tribes because they lighter than the darkest.
Right.
You see what I mean? That's what I mean.
Okay.
So it's not a shot against anybody.
Right. That's reality.
Reality.
That's true.
There's people darker than all of us over there who's considered light skinned.
Right. Who's considered white, at least who's considered red.
Right.
So, but the point is that us sitting here, and I want to make this point because somebody I think Baba had talked about, you know, if more leaders, there's a lot going on in Africa today. And it's beautiful to see people changing. We were talking about that before the mics cut on, before we got, you know, over the technical issue about how much change is going on in the world today. And sure, we can sit over here and wait until they call us, but I want to make sure that we understand that if seeing white people different in our world was a true stepping stone, we have to make that stepping stone.
No doubt.
Because what the media presents us about over there,
That's right.
white man controls that.
No doubt.
And so what we learn from over there, we can't wait for them to hear through media
That's right.
airways
That's right.
what they want or what they don't want and having to do with us because we'll just be misled. That's what the white man been doing this whole time. The truth is, I know you all know, you guys are here in Chicago, cultural activists in Chicago. Master Naba came over here in 1998, and he brought a message with him that was really always like alarm, just resounded in my head. And he was just like, the elders been waiting over there for you guys to come back. It's not like we don't want to see you back. It's just that a lot of times when you come back, you come as ambassadors to white men.
That's right.
So why we don't want to see that?
Right.
That's just, you know.
That's right. That's a shot in the foot.
We waiting for you to come back as the children, and then you can learn from the elders here. Everybody's waiting for that.
That's right.
But if you come back as ambassadors, then we got to put up defense.
Right. No doubt.
And they should.
Right. No doubt.
And that's the thing is that even what has come out of Kwanzaa, a lot of things like, you know, comedic organizations and all of that have done a lot of work in researching through anthropologist studies. But our people still have it there. And if we actually bring white men down in our eyes, we don't have to go through him to get to our own people.
That's right. That's right.
And so that's kind of the same sentiment about Kwanzaa. Yeah, Kwanzaa is beneficial. It's been beneficial. It creates people like us.
Right.
It creates people like this generation that get to know more than the last few generations. But we can't keep it there because that's going through the choice the white church leaders made in East Africa saying, hey, we want this language. And now Africa's running with it like that should be a national language. No, it shouldn't be a national language.
Right.
You see what I mean? Because that's their choice. Even if it was just for pride and saying, I don't want it because you said it.
Right.
That's enough for me.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Right.
So I really just want to make that point that white people being all devils, race is not clear enough to even know how to say that. Even if it once was, the white man that originally was here is no longer here.
True that.
Every white man got brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes today.
Right.
They don't have the same eyes that they originally
had. But I don't want to get caught up in that piece because I think the point he's trying to make is that was a paradigm shift.
And what I'm saying is we got to really shift
and so to that point, right? We're in a different place than even our elders who started all this or that we got this from 50, 60 years ago are. I mean, we already talked about Maulana's issues. Maulana was kind of somewhat typical, but also atypical, but somewhat typical of many of the leaders back then. Egocentric. I got to push my stuff. And so part of what didn't happen was it was not a collaborative effort amongst the different movements and organizations. That's why you had all this factions. That's why you had the Panthers fighting, us and fighting. I mean, because it was about whose turf is this. Right. So I think we're in a different space now.
Definitely.
To say, why don't we, not just us, but why don't we get together and say, okay, what's next?
Exactly.
Because you're right. We've been doing Kwanzaa. We've been doing Kwanzaa for 30 years, right? Why don't we get to something? What's next? Not Juneteenth, but let's figure out how do we develop something. Because I think we're in a different, collaborative space to say we can put that ego to the side. Exactly. It's not about what the Kwanzaa people want and what the Earth Center people want, what the Asar set people want. Let's get together and find some common ground and say let's do something that makes sense. That's tied to the universal movement and everything like that.
And it can draw our people.
Exactly.
Well, what I think is lacking right now is that coalition.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Right.
Yeah, we really lacking that coalition aspect, and that's something now that we're talking about it, I think that there really should be more of a conversation.
No doubt.
Definitely. Forward. What I did want to mention that the brother Nehez had brought up about the black church in Africa.
Right.
We who have been going there, really trying to find the authentic traditions spiritually as well as culturally.
Right.
We know the job that the church and the Islam,
and the mosque.
I was just gonna say the mosque doesn't sound right, but the Islam and Christianity
they call it temples anyway.
Right.
They have both done
A job.
a job on our people back home.
Right.
And when you talk about it being a war, we really need to build that solidarity with our people on the continent, because it's seriously a problem now. And I know you wanted to move away from that word for what's going on amongst us, but I'm gonna bring it back to that word problem. Like, it's a real problem in the continent with the same kind of worship. I don't know. I hate to use the word worship, but it's almost on the level of worship of anything white, European,
Absolutely.
American,
Yeah.
in
Western.
Africa, Western,
Right.
in Africa, even Arab or whatever. Chinese. There's a problem where there's the brother did a lecture in February about there being two Africas, and being an Africa that's really solidly in the traditions and working to preserve it, and then the Africa that's trying to be like model itself over here. And we see when people send pictures of like modern cities in Africa, like Africa isn't just the bush, and we have cities and stuff like that. It's like, it's just to hold up how much people are succeeding and copying
Trying to be
the West. So
right.
is that success really? We'll see it as success because it's what we know is success from our side.
Right.
But we need to do more to show them the value of what's African authentically, not just because it's there, but because it comes from there, and it's not something that's been injected or copied from somewhere else.
Teach.
Like, we really need to because when we're over here, from over here going over there and even living, it's always a conversation like, why are you in Burkina Faso? Like, what, you know what I mean? Are you with the mission? Or they'll ask, are you Christian or are you Muslim? Like, there's no other option.
Right.
So, I just wanted to add on that, because I really I'm pushing this, wanting to have the solidarity, even if it starts virtually, more so.
Yeah.
We need to build that solidarity. I wanted to make that point, but I also wanted to ask you guys another question that came to my mind.
About Kwanzaa?
No.
Okay, wait. Don't take us away from Kwanzaa. I just have one thing, because you made an important point.
Okay.
About when it got started with those elders that were so serious in doing it in Chicago. Do you see big differences in how they were doing it and how it's done now? Do you see things that are no longer being done? Or I imagine, since you guys are instrumental in how it's being done today, maybe you have kept those things in there. Is there anything that you regret kind of faded away in how Kwanzaa was being observed?
Well, I think, and this is, I guess, my critique of the older generation, if you will, that was in the movement, is that it wasn't looked at something to make sustainable, right? And that means that how do you see it a generation, 2 generations from now, right? And that is part of the, you could call it the war mentality that we were in. We just got to survive this battle. We got to survive this battle. So tomorrow will come, right? Exactly. And so how do we get beyond that? So I think now let's be honest, we're a little more comfortable now, so we can build in some sustainability. We can build in. I mean, we're trapped in this capitalistic society right now. So okay, let's create a fund that can make sure that this continues and grows, right, and evolves into something different. So I think what we're not seeing is that more so survival mentality. We're saying, okay, let's just keep it going. It's not a survival. It's kind of just. But your point is valid. How do we thrive from that, right? And I think that's where we can actually sit in this position now. I mean, that's what we're having a conversation now in the Bolozi Wazee. How do we grow from this, and how do we become an actual council of elders that doesn't just do Kwanzaa for 7 days, but is also helping our community thrive from a cultural standpoint, and maybe starting those official exchange programs or whatever you want to call them. So say, let's not just talk about Africa. Let's go there. Let's learn from the elders what it means to be an elder. That type of thing from the real traditional elders, right? That's what I'm seeing is different. Is that you have new blood that's coming into the door saying we can take this further, right? I don't know if you have anything to add.
The only thing I would add is that I think that we need to bring more education back into Kwanzaa. Back in the day, they used to have workshops at Kwanzaa. So to their credit, they, you know, if you wanted to learn about something, if they specialized in it. So like, let's just say Earth Center hosted a Kwanzaa, y'all will have something on understanding the planets movements and things of that nature. And so now am I not only going to get a refill of feeling good, right, about being black, I'm also learning something that tomorrow I can still continue to apply.
Yeah.
The young brothers and sisters over at Betty Shabazz some years ago connected with another young youth organization, and they did that. They had like workshops throughout the day, throughout the building.
Right. Remember that, right? Now they were over at Barbara Sizemore,
Was it?
It was Betty Shabazz. It was at Barbara Sizemore.
Okay. And so, but yeah, we need to get back to some of that,
right.
You know, because back in the day, the elders used to do that. The older Kwanzaas used to do that. The thing that happened over the years is that as we came into that period where Kwanzaa was slowing down, and Baba Hannibal and Nana Akua Sapong, Ziri Campbell picked Kwanzaa up, it gave people a place to go and do Kwanzaa every day for 7 days, all 7 days. You knew exactly where Kwanzaa was at. I've been working with them for a very long time, and so understand what I'm saying, that the problem with that was that it then, as it relates to it not being able to be sustainable, is that when we was forced to stop doing it, it didn't happen for like 2 years. Now, Sierra Set Society picked up and did a Kwanzaa 1 year. Toma, the Temple of Mercy Association, Brother Sax Preacher, and them, and a couple of other people jumped in for a couple of years straight, right?
It's like 20, 30 Kwanzaa events every year now.
Yeah, and now, which is a good thing. You see what I'm saying? Because don't know one individual, one group, us, the Bolozi, Wazee, Malcolm X, College, Dusabo, whoever, hold the right to be the only people to host Kwanzaa, because everybody do it a little bit different, and you learn something through the way that they do it. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that becomes one of those models that, do we need a calendar though? I think that would be helpful. You know, okay, back in the day, like you were saying, you take this day, you take this day, and then we get this calendar put together, and we have an AM and a PM shift, if you will. 12 to 3, 12 to 4, whatever, then from 6 to 9 or whatever, you know, however you get in when you fit in. Because when Malcolm X College stopped doing Kwanzaa, people was looking for Kwanzaa at the time, and they was really frustrated that they didn't have it.
We all gonna do Kwanzaa again now.
And then people rose up and just started doing it, even just because they took the position, we got to do something. We just can't let this momentum die, because it had happened. But so the other thing that I would probably just say that we should do, and I can't say if they was doing it or not, but I do know that the All African People Revolutionary Party, not CB, but CBUC, you know, and others was together, and they was all doing different work anyway. The Republic of New Africa and all of them was doing their own perspective work. The UNIA, thank you, and so many others, right, was doing their own individual work. I think that, again, like what Osei said, is that if we move away from our individual organization, right? And don't bring our individual organization mess, if I can use that word, right? And then sit to have a collaborative conversation about something that we can all work on and get done, then I think that would be a real positive thing.
Definitely.
And it don't necessarily have to start with a actual connected holiday or anything of that nature, but anything that we know that we can sit and work on. Reparations is an easy one to work on, but I think also, like you were saying, a holiday that's or like if we dealt with the Kemetic New Year, you know, but when you there, all you see is Kemetic people. You don't see these other people, these other groups. You see what I'm saying? It's like they stay in their lane, you know, and look, I don't know who all gonna see this, but look, in real life, when Conrad World was running the ALD, ALD, African Liberation Day, ALD, it was a wide range of people there. Of course, times have slowed down and everything, and whoever was doing it and whoever was all involved in it. But you know what shut that down? Homosexuals.
Oh yeah.
Yes, sir.
See,
That's what shut ALD down.
No, actually, when I first
Council. That was the early years of culture. What do they call it? Culture council. Council culture.
Oh, cancel culture.
Cancel culture.
Yeah, council culture. Yeah.
No, when I first got to Chicago, and it probably, from the sounds of it, it might have been after it had already died down. When I first got to Chicago in the early 2000s, that was the first time I heard of. I mean, here I saw it. I could still hear about it. The first year I was here, African Liberation Day's coming, and it was, I even was passing out flyers for it, and that was the first time I was hit on.
That's the first time you hit on.
I was hit on, but I
You didn't realize you were cute.
wait a second. This was Chicago.
They didn't realize he was handsome until he got hit on in Chicago.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, but yep, that's what happened, brother. They raised the issue because we raised the issue about them being there, and they raised the issue, and they put up so many different roadblocks. It was like it ain't even worth it. There was a brother that was standing next to me at ALD, and in fact, the piece that I wear during Kwanzaa with the elder with the staff in his hand over his mouth, I brought that at the Kwanzaa ALD back in the day along Madison at the was it the Superdome?
At the Golden Dome.
The Golden Dome.
in Garfield Park,
The brother standing next to me was like, man, so because they had some drum group there with an American flag, right, at an ALD, right? It's like,
what is that?
Right. So the brother said,
That's
man,
the
we
thing.
stuck between an American flag and a group of flags, and it was just so funny. I'm like, oh wow. But and that was the case, man. We the little group of us, and we wasn't necessarily together as a group. We just ended up in the line right there together, right? It was an American flag behind us and a gay community in front of us, So, but that was what brought the end of that. So, but my point is that those that run AOD today, respectfully, who I know and love, right? They are the only ones to a large degree that have a hand in AOD.
That's all part of it.
And yeah, the All African Revolutionary Party, right. If I said that right.
Right.
And so you, in my estimation, just like with Kwanzaa, right? You can't allow for a single group. Can they lead it? Absolutely. But
Right.
everybody
Gotta
should
be
be at that
involved.
table if it's all
Can't they
inclusive.
bring-
You know what I'm
one
saying?
group can't bring everybody together.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Thank you. Yep. So
Well, I wanted to ask this other question
But
because
if you're gonna switch, do you want to take questions? Because we got questions.
Oh, we got questions.
are there questions about Kwanzaa?
If there are questions about Kwanzaa, Marcus, let's hear them.
We got one question about Kwanzaa
we can get a shit
by
first.
we got one question about Kwanzaa by Anita Andrews
That's my wife.
Hutchinson.
Okay.
That's your wife.
Totally
Never
unbiased. Totally unbiased.
Take that one first.
Yeah, let's do it.
So your wife says, can there be multiple tools to reach our people? If Kwanzaa can be an entry point, can Juneteenth and other vehicles be as well?
Absolutely.
The question is, can there be multiple tools to reach our people? If Kwanzaa is an entry point, can't Juneteenth and other things be used as well? Just for those who couldn't hear Marcus on the microphone. And I think everybody's in agreement with that.
Definitely. I mean,
Absolutely.
and just to let you know where that's coming from. So her business and organization has now sponsored one of the biggest Juneteenth celebrations in the city of Chicago, and they did it now 2 years. It's called Village Fest.
You should have
And-
told me, brother.
Bruh.
I would have only spoke nice.
No. But
See, that's the point.
But
You gotta
the point is,
speak
it is an awesome event. It's on the west side. They made it free. They had great entertainment come out, and people came. I mean, brothers came up to me, man, this is free, and we get to come out here and be with black people and be positive. Man, I ain't never seen this before. And he was like
Right.
hurt and excited,
right.
And so that right there speaks to its effectiveness, right? That's a tool to get people energized. And so the question is, what's next, right? What do you plug into, right?
And I think when we were at Dusabo, I think she was even bringing up that we should do some tours to Africa with their school.
No doubt. I think I said that, but yeah. Right.
But I think that's what I was even
But
gonna
that's
mention.
with the school that we didn't get to mention on the
Teach.
podcast. But we should at least mention Mama Anita's school.
Yeah, I was going to say that
Village
because
Leadership Academy and the what is it called, the
Those
the
schools
pre-K?
that
Well, it takes a village.
It
It's,
takes
it's
a
a
village.
parent company,
Okay.
right? And it's a family school. So the
Okay.
Village Leadership Academy, and there's many daycares that feed into Village Leadership.
Yeah, I wanted to mention
which
that
is
back when-
downtown, and now they're opening up at the Old Hales.
The Old Hales
facility.
Franciscans
They're
will be the
gonna have-
Bronzeville
they're gonna
campus.
Be opening up. I just wanted to mention that
Yeah.
because you know
That's big. That's big.
No, I wanted to mention that back when. I mean, I think, even if I'm drawing a theme out of this episode, we really have to give credit to the elders, the sacrifices, the work that those before us put in.
I should.
In this side of the world, on this side of the ocean, like you had said, we were cut from everything.
That's right.
Our humanity, our identity, we don't know our names, we don't know our families. Our families have shrines and spirituality. We don't know any of
Right.
that. We're not connected to that. So what people have done here to survive and just try to get to the next step,
Right.
all of that is valued.
No doubt.
And none of these kind of conversations is to take away any of that value,
That's right.
any of those struggles, any of those successes. Because I wanted to mention it, the work that Baba Hannibal put in and was standing up as a father, as an elder in the community, saying, no, we need to take responsibility for the education of our children.
That's right.
Why would we let them have it?
Right.
Your wife has something that came out of that.
That's right.
And so, that's really when I wanted to mention it, because
sir.
you could see the thread.
Yes,
and
sir.
we could all
Definitely.
see the benefit that the work our elders did brought. But now us who have a new opportunity, we have to make sure to use that opportunity and jump in.
No doubt.
And when we jump in, it might offend some people. When we jump in, it might be like, wait a second, you can't talk like that here. But we jump in and then we, rebalance.
Don't.
And then we say, okay, well, how can we work
Right.
together and how can we make this next step?
Can I put in a real quick plug?
Please.
Because as you were saying, we were talking about doing tours, but we've actually been to Africa now 4 times.
Okay.
Over the past 10 years, our first trip to Africa was in 2011. We went to Congo, DR Congo.
Mm,
We were in the
okay.
bush in DR Congo.
Okay.
Then we went to South Africa in 2013. That had interesting results, and then we went to Ghana in 2017. We just went to Rwanda last year.
And this is with your family or with
This
the
is with the
schools as
school.
well?
This is
Okay.
with the school.
Okay.
So the first time we went to Congo, the first time, talk about not knowing, right? One of the family said, "So are y'all going to Congo or y'all going to Africa?" Like, okay, all right, we got some work to do. Okay, but the point being is that when we went, we were clear that we were not. And I love the analogy that we a lot of times show up as ambassadors of this. We showed up as ambassadors of us, and so we made tight connections. And some of those are this is a result of that. The brother in Kumasi I met in 2017, and now he's providing traditional kente stoles for every graduating class since we've been there. And he's providing, and he's trying, like I said, he's trying to come here, trying to get him an artist of residency so he can see the real U.S. because he thinks, if I get to the U.S., I'm going to make my point. Bruh, slow down. We want you to come here to share the real knowledge from where you're coming from. So my point is that we always try to go as ambassadors of who we are and then learn as much as we can in that short 8-10 day period. But the point is, we also have to do again what's next, what's the follow up.
Right.
So yeah, and so I just want to touch that base.
Appreciate
that. Yeah.
So I think this even more perfectly segues into the question.
There you go. There you go.
Which is that because
It wasn't about Kwanzaa.
because the brother was the Hez was mentioned about the elders and needing to give respect to the elders.
That's right.
At this point, now you guys are already officially considered elders.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even though you a little bit lacking on the gray side, but consider elders. But however you consider it or whatever, all of us here we're parents. We're all parents, and we're elders to some people.
That is right.
In a very important role. And my question was about the children, because we're in a situation where we're now talking about what's the next step forward. But I think a lot of us are dealing with the very real question of how do we not take steps backwards in terms of how our children are carrying forward what we've worked our lives to preserve. So I wanted to ask what you guys, speak to that in terms of things that you're doing with your families to try to make sure that your children continue to carry the torch that you're passing to them.
Right.
So there's a book by Elder Mariba Kelsey called Healthy is Wealthy, African Socialization Process for African People, right? And so we use that book to rear our children, and to that plus CB Social Studies curriculum to earmark things for our children, if you will. And so that's a big piece for us, right? First and foremost, give them an African name, give them African rituals as they continue to grow, right? So my daughter had hers at 6. We missed my son's, but he'll get his next one. My daughter's next one is out to her cleansing cycle start, right? And so it is tied to that whole piece. But more importantly, to make sure that we understand that we just do not live this life outside of our family. That our family also is a big part of this life that we live. When Mama Kuumba Johnson made her transition, her daughter said something so profound. She said, when I was little, I used to didn't like you nationalist people.
I remember that.
It seemed like y'all had my mama more than I did. Y'all took my mama away, right?
Wow.
And so Baba Ajay Koto, Baba Sanyika, Baba Koto is out of DC, thank you. And then Baba Sanyika is out of St. Louis. Them and others are now stressing the need for family to be a part of this. And so I think Osei is a prime example of that. Him and his wife is intricately connected to many other aspects. I think it's 5, 6 aspects of nation building, right? The housing, clothing, feeding, education, medication, self-defense, right? And that whole thing. My family, I think, is an example of that to the extent that we focus on self-defense, building, and clothing, and then gardening, you know what I'm saying? And so, and I think that as we look at your family, we'll probably see that y'all cover. And so that's a big piece of rooting your children in that versus you going out fighting to save the African world and you thinking that your family will see your example and follow suit. And we have seen on more than one occasion that that's not to be the case, you know. And so to your question, I think that the biggest thing that we can do for our children is to bring them into that, right? Make sure that they understand that and be a part of that, and then protect who our children are around, regardless if they're family or not, you know, because everybody in your family ain't worth your children's space and time. And you have to be, to your point earlier, speak bold and speak truth regardless, right? You have to be clear on that. I don't want my child in the car with him or her. That's my first cousin, and yes, I love them. You see what I'm saying? And yes, I will kill for them. But
I know their sicknesses.
You see what I'm saying?
I know their sicknesses.
You're right, and I don't want those my children exposed to those. So that's my long and short answer to that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just to veggie back on what Baba said. I mean, we definitely said African names. As much as people in our own family, why you give them that name? Why don't you give them a normal name? You know, that type of thing. I mean, and we did a traditional African naming ceremony.
I had an auntie, one of my mother's sisters, because I named my first 2 children African names. Called me about my second 2 children and said, I hope you're not going to give them babies no African name. Let them get a good start in life.
Right, exactly. Oh my God. Yeah,
we all heard it. We all heard it.
Exactly. You know. So we followed suit with that. We did the African naming ceremony. We did a rites of passage for me and a number of Babas did rites of passage for our sons that Baba Nubian was the drill sergeant for. So they hated him, right? Or they loved him. Hated or loved.
Hated love.
Love relationship. And our daughter also was part of a rites program as well. But again, I think the biggest example, kind of not intentionally, but yes, intentionally, was the creation of the school. And I want to be really clear that my wife and her business partners, I just happened to work there. But I'd also brought my contribution, attitude, whatever you want to call it, to say, you know, so we taught some of the traditional things that I was taught in my rites of passage program, meaning Tabor, which embedded defense, embedded African dance, and embedded discipline within it. And that became a part of what that school is. And not only did our children benefit from that, but hundreds of children benefited from that as well. And then also making sure that all the tours that we went on over the past 11 years, if they weren't to an African diaspora in place, we also sought out the African diaspora in those places or the connections to that. So like we went to Mexico in 2012, we had to make clear we're not going to what's the place everybody goes to in Mexico? And it's
Cancun.
Cancun, right? We went to the Yucatan, which Cancun is in. And we're not going to Cancun. We're going to the Yucatan to study the Maya. When we got there, we met this Maya brother. After 2 days, he's like, "This is what our people, meaning you and me, because we understand that the Maya came after the Olmec, and the Olmec are us." So we made sure to make those connections as well.
Nice.
Do we do enough? No. I'll be honest with you, because unfortunately we're surrounded by this poison called whiteness, or capitalism, whatever. Our families still have an influence, even though we try to filter them from. I'm not gonna name no name. We try to filter, but some of that still happens, right? And reality is we gotta somewhat keep peace in the family too. So it's a challenge.
And that was where I was gonna go next. Like, how do you try to protect from the influences that's really being in a world built by whiteness, even if whatever our family members look however they look, but what the world is built on, a certain ideologies. Yep. And I mean, and so it's part of it is setting that model, being that example, right? Showing this is look what I'm doing, and then I don't say it like that, but this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm about. And I mean, I was taking my son to every meeting I went to before he could even stand, right? Now he don't want to be with me. He's too cool. He's 21 years old. He want to hang out with Bible. Okay. But he's working for my company, which is a African-based energy company. He's okay. All right. I guess I'm making a little money and I'm learning a little stuff. My daughter, I'm scared of her because she's like on a rampage, and I was like, Baba, look at what these white people down here. She's a Spelman, and I'm worried about her going to Spelman because we know that bougie mentality is part of that whole environment, right?
I ran.
Uh-huh.
I was at Morehouse for a year and a half, and I ran.
But she's coming down there with a fierceness, like, okay, all right, just don't get kicked out, all right, And I'm glad you're taking that African World Diaspora class, and that's the class she got an A. I'm like, okay, all right, we're good. The baby, she's gonna be a mess when she get that baby. She's 8 years old now. She's asking all these questions about why they doing this, why they doing. Keep asking those questions. Now, unfortunately, she just came from the hairdresser. She was mad she get her hair straight. I was like, okay, but your hair looks pretty in those braids. Yeah, it does. But I wanted my okay. So no more Little Mermaid for you, right? That type of thing, right? But anyway, that's kind of that. But it's a daily challenge, as you all know. It's a daily challenge.
And so the one is exposure. Because what they are not introduced to, they just don't know about, right? And of course, the world is larger than your home, right? And then two is constant interrogation, constant interrogation. And so when you see the baby raising these questions, you're doing a good job. When Arende, my daughter, was young, she used to say white people need to get off this planet and just go to another planet, right? She was that adamant and understood that this. We raised her on Kitty Cool. You familiar with the cartoon? She know it verbatim. She can crawl on the floor and he crawled the whole 9 yards. And so, but I think that the interrogation of everything that you see, and stop acting as if they're not ready for this. You know what I'm saying? Stop acting as if they're not ready for this. And then feed it to them in a way that they can understand it. What I'm saying? Whatever it is. And they can talk to you about the 5-6 elements of a nation building. You know what I'm saying? And so the little rugs that they let you play on and have all of this stuff. And since for at least the last 4 or 5 years, she would have to set up a community and show me where her hospital was at. Then I would interrogate why you got your hospital so close to your garden. There's gonna be like this medical over, right? Okay, so get that together. I'll be back to look at that. And so that was how we did that piece. And so it's a lot of work though, man, but it's worth it. You know what I'm saying? It's worth it because in the end, you don't want your seed to be that what you have been fighting against for the last 30, 40 years.
I mean, you mentioned about maybe not seeing things in our lifetime, and that's what prompted me to think about the question. It's like, we need to be able to pass things on then.
Absolutely.
And,
that's right.
So,
that's right.
Thanks for that. And I think we also need to, and I mean, we're going on 2 hours now. We haven't got to even talk about the community protection piece as much in terms of some of the strategies with the survivor training camp that you guys did. I mean, we touched on it briefly earlier, or what you do with your protection business. And I think you mentioned, what was it again, where you said what you rites of passage that you teach in the school?
Well, Tabora.
Tabora.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you know, that sounds like it relates as well to the topic. So
Definitely.
Yeah, could y'all talk some about those?
You want to know? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, for the Outdoor Leadership Skills Project, which has actually become more Outdoor Leadership Skills / Black Survival Network, to be honest, it has been a struggle to get people to see the reason. Now, post-pandemic, we haven't really tried since the pandemic really got off, but the pre-pandemic, it was hard to get people to just show up to think about even camping outside for 2 days. You know, and we got a lot of talk. Oh, yeah, I'm going to be out there. And we're like, wow, where's everybody at?
Right.
You know, ain't nobody show up. Now, people have been talking about it more because the pandemic was a wake-up call. Folks realized, dang, we really can't get nothing at the store. We can't even get toilet paper. You know, that type of thing. So we probably, I guess, I'm speaking as kind of an outside member of the committee. We need to probably look at how do we, get the committee back together, because that people are seeing the need, and we know that's a need.
Okay.
But I mean, to be able to say you can go out anywhere and figure out how to survive on the land for a couple of days with, should I give it away, the level 4?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I mean, to go out with the clothes on your back and 2 matches and some type of sidearm.
Well, 7 matches. Don't reduce them to 2 matches.
I know we had 2 matches. That's all we had.
Mississippi.
Yeah, right.
That's all you need. It's already warm.
Right. True. I'm going to hold that rule.
7 matches, the clothes on your back, a notepad, because we give you instructions, right? And things, a task that you have to accomplish. You got to get your food from the land. You got to get your water and all of that type of stuff. So it's just a test to see where you at.
That's not day 1.
No. That's actually level 3.
That's level 3. Right.
And so
you go through different levels each time you go out there. If you go this summer, the next summer you'll go to level 1A.
Yeah, you're right. You've been out there.
Then level 2, 3.
Right.
Yeah. So it takes years to build up to that level of survival. But I for sure recognize it's important, and I should recognize it a little bit more. We taking steps, right? But
no doubt.
But any time I feel like we lucky that it hasn't happened yet, that we've had to face that type of situation.
What has happened?
I mean, on large scale, nationwide.
Right.
You can't can't get nothing indefinitely.
Right.
Like it can happen.
You're right.
It can happen. You never know what might be the cause. So
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's really even the value though, because if we're lucky, it won't happen in our lifetime.
True that.
But the value of you knowing how to live in nature and survive in nature and connect to nature, all of that is hugely beneficial to anyone. So,
no doubt.
Well,
so
especially if you make use of it on a regular basis. And,
Definitely.
Right.
Can you let us know, just for clarity for the viewers and listeners, what the organization is called and how they can contact you if they want to go through that process?
That's a good question, because I don't even know the email, because we have really, I just want to back up just a little bit and veggie back on what he was saying. Not only, what was the instance that you mentioned? The pandemic.
Right.
We have to remember the different aspects of the pandemic. We had George Floyd's murder and the civil unrest. We had the shutdown of 2 of the major ammunition companies in the United States, right? Only one was running. We had inaccessibility of firearms because all of this was happening. And to top all of that off, we had Orange Carrot Top as president, right? Following Obama, right? Obama, and that's who he is. And what he left, and everything, right? And so we were really in a bad place. And there was nothing
supply chain shortages too.
Say that again.
Supply chain shortages.
Yes. Everything, like Osei was saying, you couldn't even get toilet paper.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you couldn't get the basic necessities. You couldn't get the ability to protect yourself because there just was no firearms available.
No ammunition.
No ammunition. And the ammunition that was available prior to the pandemic, a 9mm round, I think, was 19 cents. During the pandemic, at the height of the pandemic, it was about $1 to $1.25 a round. And so it was like, it was bad.
And what is it now?
And that was practice ammo. That
Right,
wasn't
right,
self-defense ammo.
And what is it now?
It have leveled off. It's back to, it's down to, I think, about 18 to 20 something cent.
Oh, okay.
You can get, let me say this, you can get 50 of them for $12.99 easy now, $13.99.
So it's not like things
So
like
whatever that
eggs and
divide
bread.
into. Say that again.
It's not like things like eggs and bread and stuff that's still like high.
No, well, you know how that goes. Once they get you to pay that price, they're
Right.
like, "These checks will pay that, we'll keep that up there," you know.
Right.
And they learned that first lesson from the Gulf War, I think it was, when gas prices went up, and you know, they let them come down for a little while Obama went into office, and now they still hovering, and you know what I'm saying?
Back up over $4.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to answer your question, the Black Survival Network is the organization that's really active now. That's the Child of Outdoor Leadership Skills Project. But it's about we have to that has to be resurrected.
Yeah.
There's a need.
Okay.
Right.
Since the pandemic, I don't
Right.
think it's been going
Okay.
on.
Yeah.
Because I see how it's a aspect of community protection, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Protecting ourselves, but it's even an aspect of just returning to ourselves.
No doubt.
Because a lot of people don't understand that our ancestors didn't live depending on white people. Our
Right,
ancestors
right.
didn't live depending on the system.
That's
and
right.
our ancestors made the choice. A lot of people don't understand that our ancestors made the choice to stay living connected to nature.
That's right.
That's right.
It
That's
wasn't
right.
like they weren't intelligent enough or didn't have
Right,
enough.
right.
All the resources everybody gets to develop their countries come from there.
That's
So
right.
they could have did the development if they wanted to,
That's
but
right.
they'd rather keep a connection to nature.
That's
That's
right.
right.
You know.
Well,
No doubt.
Master Nabu was saying about just something as simple as cooking. If you in your village, you know, it takes a whole different level of intelligence just to light a fire to be able to cook on, as opposed to, you know, just turn a stove.
That's right.
And then, you know, or like set your oven to 350 or whatever.
Right.
You know, you gotta make sure the fire is exactly how hot it needs to be.
That's right.
And
Which we teach.
yeah,
Right.
and
I mean, it's just important because for city people, I mean, I didn't realize this until, you know, I started following Master Nabu different places, and then the questions he even asked some people, because I had the benefit of growing up, and then my parents take me out into the woods, into the country. But some people, you ask them, you know where milk comes from, and they just say a carton.
Jewel.
Like before that.
Right.
Whoever put it in the carton, like what?
Jules, brother, Jules.
Jules, my bad, right.
We in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, brother. Yeah.
Just watch the wire.
We'll be here.
So anything else about that piece? Because I know you also do arms training.
So my trainer just left the room.
Could you tell us
But-
about the tabor then?
So Tabura,
Tabora.
Tabura, Tabura,
Okay.
is actually another derivative of the US organization. Okay,
Okay.
so he didn't just bring Kwanzaa, but he developed this whole thing called Kawaida, which is a kind of a whole concerted. Somebody put it to me as a methodology,
You said
right?
coward.
Kawaida.
Oh, coward.
Kawaida, and again, it's a Kiswahili word that is interpreted as tradition and reason.
Okay.
So we have our traditional things that we always did, but in maybe an urban setting, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to have a harvest festival in December because we can't harvest nothing. But how do we at least symbolize that in the dead of winter, right? So that was the concept of Kawaida. He also, though, he brought with him, and this is from his research, and again, not just him, but other people, developed a system that was basically a drill system. Like you see a drill team or something like that, but a way to discipline. And you see it's similar in the military. You know, people join the military to get discipline. Well, the concept of discipline in the military in most people's minds is that discipline is somebody yelling at you to get right. You better stand up, boy. You know, that's and the concept is not that.
That's pretty good.
Right, what's his name? Just passed away, Lou Gossett Jr. Right, you know, right, yeah.
Yep.
Just read that last night. But my point being, though, is that the discipline concept comes that it's internal. We discipline ourselves, and so if you have a goal to move towards, so our understanding is that in order to be good, upright young men and women in society, you need discipline to be a good leader. Because we transform it a little bit for Village Leadership Academy, that to be a good leader, which is the middle name of the school, you need to be a disciplined leader, because we got a lot of folk out here who are leaders but are not disciplined, and therefore that's why they get indicted, that's why they got cases against them, that's why they, all this other kind of stuff. So we need leaders that actually have some discipline about them. So we train about the 7 elements of leadership. How do we, or some elements of discipline? Starts with self. Right, self-control. But then we talk about self-imposed order. Then we talk about how do you follow instructions. We talk about how do you have what's called delayed gratification. How do you use something called critical thinking? How do you have some initiative, and then how do you sacrifice it? Not in the Hollywood sense of sacrifice, but seeing a bigger picture beside yourself and saying, okay, my personal needs can go to the side so I can get this done. I'm not giving it up necessarily, I'm just putting it to the side. So that's how we incorporate that within the school, and getting our students to see that I can teach them the movements, but it really has to be from them and how they can discipline themselves. And as a result, they've been able to take that and lead whole protests against the shooting of Laquan McDonald and march in front of the juvenile detention center, which you love, the place we go all the time, not for good reasons, right? For good reasons. How they can, start, advocating for the change of the name of a park that's named after Stephen Douglas, a slave owner who tried to run for state senator against the great emancipator Abraham Lincoln, but he was a slave owner. He believed in sustaining that park is named after him. Students set up, no, we got to change that name. Let's just add an S, and now it's Frederick Douglass instead of Stephen Douglas. And they were able to, because again, I would believe, I'll take this credit, that because of their understanding of what it means to be a disciplined leader, be able to carry yourselves in different arenas as a quote unquote cute little 5th grader, you can actually do something in the world and change the world. So that's the methodology that we use.
And that's a video on YouTube, right? We'll put that in the description.
Say that again.
About the students coming together. And
right. Because we showed it. I forgot about that. Yeah. They were asking about the weapons training.
So I'm a licensed instructor with the state, and I hold a bunch of several different nationally recognized certifications by different shooting instructors and whatnot. So we do concealed carry. Our website is www.advantage.com. So we can always be reached through there. We also have a all black women shooting club, nationally recognized all black women shooting club, Soul Sister Shooting Club. And that's SOULSISTA, then shooting club. And so our email is Soul Sister. I'm gonna get in trouble.
That's Soul Sister with an A at the end, right?
Yes,
For the email.
Soul Sister.
You can give it to us later.
Yeah, we'll put it in the
Soul
description.
Sister Shooting at 23@gmail.com. But I'll make sure you have it. In fact, I could look on my business card and get it right.
Soul Sister Shooting.
Yeah, Soul Sister Shooting Club.
23.
And so, but we do the firearms training. We do handgun, carbine, even though carbine's now illegal in the state of Illinois for now, right? And so we have to do that outside of the state of Illinois. And then we also have shotgun training, right? And so I just want to encourage people, the listening audience, that regardless of who you get your training with, and I say that with a caveat, make sure that they're qualified instructor, right? And that because you want to be safe, and then you want to make sure you're getting good instruction, but get you some training because it's much better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. And so a shield, as we often says, a shield is not made on the battlefield. You will not have an opportunity to hone your skills now that it's time to defend your life. You know what I'm saying? So stop playing with that aspect of your existence because the other part of that is that we do all of this work to obtain things. And it's only ours as long as somebody else have not chosen to come and take it. You know what I'm saying? And if you're not in a position to stop them, you see what I'm saying? Then that becomes a problem. And so there's an understanding that there's a lot of people that say that they are nonviolent, right? You probably are far more harmless than you are nonviolent. Because even if you wanted to inflict violence, you couldn't, because you do not have the capability, you don't have the technology, you don't have the skill set, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, what we do works well until it don't. And then when it don't, the consequences are so high. You know what I'm saying? I believe in teaching children firearm safety, firearm usage. Just imagine when Emmett Till came to get snatched out that house. It's just, if that elder would have took the position that, first of all, we're going to all die before I turn this child over to this white mob, right? Everything in this house will die, right, before we turn them over. And then secondly, if those children that was in there just understood the basic fundamentals, and they was in the South, it's a good chance that they probably understood that. You know what I'm saying? This is our last stand, if you will. You see what I'm saying? And then been able to take some people with them. And so we can't neglect that part of our development as those tenets of nation building that we talk about.
And what did Ivy Wells say? That Winchester should have an honored place in every home in Black America.
Yep, that's right.
Ida B. Wells from Chicago.
That's right. Look, that's right. They gave you a street name out there, but they won't never tell you that.
Right.
Yep. You know what? My QR code is on here, but the Sister Shooting Club is on there. But the
email address.
We'll be sure to put it in the description once you
get it. Okay. And I think it's you know what? It's on my phone, brother. Go ahead.
But while you get in there, what response do you get from those that you've been training? What does it put in them? What's the benefit they receive?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. A lot of people, because the 16 in Illinois is a 16-hour process to get licensed in the state of Illinois, and so as a for concealed carry, excuse me, thank you, to get concealed carry, right? It's a 16-hour course. As a certified instructor, I can certify and say that yes, you came, sat with me for 16 hours. I saw you shoot, you passed the qualification. Most people walk away with, man, I wouldn't have never thought it was this involved, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is that they get a good understanding of you just can't shoot people and drag them across your threshold, right? Because CSI is real, right? You just can't shoot somebody because they done jumped in your car while you was pumping your gas and they done took off with your car, right? You can't start something and then claim your innocence and claim self-defense. And so it's a lot of that they get out of it, right? A whole lot of that. Yes.
And then also education about the reality. Because everybody see guns in movies. They're like, I could do that. I could take somebody out when I need to. But
I could tell you some examples that I've heard from my class. Two of them, most outstanding. A young man said, when I asked him about shooting in the air, and I said, what goes up must come down, right? He said, man, I never thought about it. All of the times I done shot in the air, I just thought the round disintegrated or something. No, brother, right? And so that's that conversation. Another one stressed that I thought all I had to do was just aim and press like in the direction and press the trigger. You couldn't hit the inside of you couldn't hit a barn from the inside shooting like that. And so they find those kinds of things out. But more importantly, with firearms training, a firearm is like a last resort. You know what I'm saying? And so there's so much more before you have to get to a point where I need to use a gun. Right. De-escalation, deselection, and all of this. And so because the last thing you really want to do, I spend a whole lot of money taking a whole lot of classes. I leave out of town Thursday morning to go to a 3-day conference down in Dallas, Texas. This coming Thursday, I'll be leaving out and I'll be there for 3 days. And so, and I hope I never have to shoot nobody. I tell you the truth, it's something that I just do not, you know what I'm saying? And then the other side of that family is that, truth be told, if I did have to shoot somebody 9 times out of 10, it's gonna probably end up being a black person because we are people, what's the word? people prey on those that's in their proximity. And because I live in the proximity of black people, it's a good chance that a black person is going to try to do something to me. And then if I, you know what I'm saying, have to use my firearm, it'll probably end up having to be on the black person. But so, you know, it's just a lot to think about, and stop thinking of like I think you used the word Hollywood. Stop having this Hollywood conversation and this thought and this fantasy about, now that you got this thing, all your answers no. Firearm, especially a handgun, only improve your chances of making it home. It does not guarantee it. You see what I'm saying? And so as soon as you realize I ain't guaranteed to make it home, you start acting like you got some sense, even though you got a firearm on you.
But
you know,
even a firearm without training may not even do that, and that's the important point that you're saying, because that, it reminded me of, we had Mr. McDonald on, who I know you,
Mark Quinn,
you know, and
good friend of mine.
He was just talking about the importance of the training they have, and even how they're able to de-escalate some of the situations they get to for what's it called? Block watch?
Community patrol.
With the community
watch
patrol.
guard.
Watch guard.
Okay.
Just how effective employing a training is. And for a lot of people who don't even think about guns and training, and, you know, the training that goes in before you even reach for a gun, you know, is important. It's important. It's discipline. And, you know, we see in Chicago, there's not a shortage of guns, but there's definitely a shortage of discipline and training. So, you know, it's a good thing that you brothers are out there doing.
And what's really funny, Jane Byrne passed a handgun ban in 1982, right? You'd have thought with that in place, Chicago been one of the safest places on the planet, right? Not the case. And so it's kind of like, and of course, Otis McDonald fought that. He actually got to live long enough. He was an elder black man. He's on the on record, McDonald versus the city of Chicago. They got the handgun ban lifted. I like to mention that because a part of black history, you know, you wouldn't know that there was a black person that was intricately involved in that. But so what I deal with as it relates to firearms training, firearms is just a very small part of self-defense. You know what I'm saying? Of being a first defender. And so we have what I call wraparound services. I stole that from social work, right? That we have wraparound services, and so there's a wide range of things that we teach. In fact, we just had an event with Soul Sister Shooting Club, whose email address is soulsistershooting23, and that's soul SOUL sister SISTA shooting spelled out, and then 23@gmail.com. Okay. But we just had an event where we was playing games, card games, just to reinforce what you should understand that you need to be doing if you ever had to use your firearm, or how you avoid using your firearm. Card games, just card games that we all play in our houses. And so again, these things, per the self-defense piece, you know what I'm saying, lets you know and remind you that this gun don't make me Superman or Wonder Woman. You know what I'm saying? In fact, as Brother Gimbu would say, in me carrying my gun, I have let so many people walk away that I would have laid hands on had not I had my firearm on me. Because if you get into a fight with your firearm on you, that firearm becomes the chances of yours or his, because now it's in the fight. And then legally, when the police show up, or you out here fighting, so what, he calls your old lady out of her name, you got a gun on you, that don't look good. You see what I'm saying? And there's legal ramifications for that. Even though you never pulled the gun, nobody ever seen the gun, nobody else ever even knew the gun was there, there's going to be some questions generated behind that.
Interesting. And things that most people don't think anything about.
At all, you know what I'm saying? And this is how we end up getting in trouble with a lot of this stuff. We just had a young lady that shot her daughter looking for her keys in her purse. Round went off and killed her daughter. Several months ago, we had I have a piece called OLDS, Online Developmental Sessions, and it was just strictly about firearm safety. And this was the Soul Sister Shooting Club. And so one of the big conversations was how, if you do choose to carry a firearm in your purse, how you must do that. We had a sister at a salon throw her purse up on the thing to pay for her hands, her nails, or whatever, and shot around off. Fortunately, didn't nobody get hit, but you know, and so And again, this is because people do not know
Right.
to teach, or those that have been taught did not listen and follow. Because that happens too, you know. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's valuable. I think, you know, I definitely got stories of people I grew up with that, you know, had the gun go off, you know.
Yeah, guns just don't go off.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Yeah, not
it
go
went
off.
off.
But the person messing with the gun,
Yes,
not
yes.
knowing that he was firing it, and then he's blind now. For the rest of his life. That was when he was young.
I had a preacher that I've been trying to get to take my class since I first started teaching concealed carry. So concealed carry came to the state in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, and I went on and became an instructor in 2015 or in 2016, right? 1 or 2 years afterward. And I've been trying to get this brother to take this class ever since, right? And so his thing is that he can't miss a Sunday, right? I'm telling him, get a couple of other people that can't miss Sundays and I'll do a class for y'all, right? And he tells me, I'm good. I don't need no class. And I just keep my little 25 in my back pocket, right? That's a problem in itself, right?
No doubt.
Then he tells me he's showing his 25 to some friends, and all of a sudden it just goes off. It ain't ever did that. This is him talking to me. It ain't ever did that, but he did that day. And I'm done. I've been trying to get you to class for a long time. I'm glad did nothing happen, right? But it's like, no, dude, you put your finger on the trigger in the process of showing them, and you squeeze the round off, if you will. You know what I'm saying? But again, man, we train children. When we talk about children, let me just, if I may, just leave these few nuggets.
Please.
Do not allow for your children to play with any type of gun, not a water gun, not a bubble blower, anything in the shape of a gun that has a trigger on the children should not play with. You do not need for them to transfer from the ideal of a toy to now an actual deadly weapon. No, we just respect guns. We don't play with them, right? We was at the arcade yesterday for my son's birthday, and while me and their mother did some shooting, baby boy go and pick one up, and I'm like, nope, you know, this is still, we don't do that, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is let them see you handle your gun responsibly. Let them see you carrying your gun. Let them know that you never leave the house without your firearm. Let them know that the reason why you have that firearm on you is so that you can protect them and yourself. So we will improve our chances of making it back home. And children will grasp it. They will grasp it. I would always leave a completely unloaded firearm with the slide racked or the trigger cocked, if you will, and there's no way that either one of my children would have been able to press the trigger and then rack the slide and put it back in that state, right? And so I would leave it there in plain sight. And this is to monitor to see if they're fooling with it. Never, ever, not once had a problem. And again, this is from intelligent communication and interrogation. You know, looking at movies, look, let me rewind that, tell me what they're doing wrong. You know, they got their finger on the trigger. She's shooting that gun with her hand behind the thing, and you know what I'm saying, and all of this. And we're talking 10 at the time, because she just made 11, I think, if my math is right. And right, and 7, you know. But they're capable of doing it, man. And and I just was looking at an article the other day where a child and his mother was killed by her abusive boyfriend. You know, now it's one thing for her to be getting beaten by this man. When the child tried to intervene, I think the child was 11 years old. When the child tried to intervene, the child got stabbed. That's what it was. But what happens if that child had the understanding that let me go get this gun and help mommy, and then had a good idea of what this looked like. You see what I'm saying? And so, but being inside of urban environments where everything is just so bad about guns, you know what I'm saying? We know we don't want that, we don't want that. That's not our reality. You know what I'm saying? That is not that it's not real. It's just that it's not our reality. You see what I'm saying? And so we just have to approach it a different way. But
Understood.
So you take your concealed carry now?
If you haven't, you should.
Do we have more questions online? I think.
Yeah, let's come to all that.
So just to interject that before you get your concealed carry, though, you can get your FOID, your firearms identification card, do that. You can apply for that first. That doesn't require. I mean, Brett, you still don't require
It's
class.
legal good standards.
Right.
What you say?
Now you don't have to get any training to get your
No,
ID,
no.
and that is the first step before you get your concealed carry. And you can do that online. I think you can
Yeah,
use.
you can do it online. In fact, you don't even need a FOIA card to take a concealed carry class. But you should.
The
Everybody.
firearm owner ID, right?
Yeah. And Illinois is one of a handful of states that have such a thing. But everybody in the house should have a FOIA card, whether they shoot or not.
Right.
Let's say you get in an accident, you got your firearm on you. Your firearm can't go to the hospital with you. So your wife who's not a shooter or a gun handler or anything, she can then come and pick it up, but she has to have her own FOIA card. And so in instances like that, everybody in the house should have a
Needs to
FOIA
have
card. Yep.
I follow. All right, Marcus, are there any questions from online?
Yeah, a couple. So, actually, only two.
Okay.
So, one of the questions were, when will the doors for initiation open? By KC Global.
Okay, our first question was, when will the doors of initiation open from Casey? And that's speaking to the initiation classes offered at the Kepta Temples or the Earth Center from the Umtam School. Here in Chicago, they will be opening sometime in June. We don't have the exact date, but we will be announcing it as soon as we have it. And around that same time, they'll be opening in a number of temples around the country and online. So just stay tuned. We'll let you know. Thank you for the question. Yes, Marcus?
Nice.
And another question that is referring to the very first conversation or the very first topic you guys were talking about, by Ziul Bakande. Ziul Bakande. He's asking, what answer do you have for some members of the diaspora who said they are Native American, Moors, Israelite? Some even claim indigenous to the American continent. Is there any truth to this?
Okay.
So I'll
We're gonna
repeat.
take that one.
I can repeat the question if you need.
No, I got it.
Yeah.
No, repeat it because I need to make sure that the listeners got it.
So I'll repeat it.
Just repeat the question. I don't need the names.
What answer do you have for some members of the diaspora who said they are Native American, Moors, Israelite? Some even claim indigenous to the American continent. Is there any truth in this?
The question is, what answer do you have for some members of the diaspora who are claiming that they are Native American, Moors, or Israelite, or indigenous to the Americas? And that question is really good for a whole nother episode. I don't know how you connected that to Kwanzaa, Marcus, but you did somehow. But it really needs an episode because to go into each one of those, you put a lot in the question. Moorish nationality, Hebrew, Israelite nationality, those native to the Americas. Maybe just to give something in this episode, there were definitely those that are known now, those that are now associated with black in America before Columbus came, before, you could look into works like from Ivan Van Sertima to read all about that.
They came before Columbus.
They came before Columbus,
Dr.
Renoko Rashidi. A lot of them have done a lot of work to prove that blacks were here, Africans were here. And if you go to Africa, they will tell you it wasn't just like one, it was ship after ship, people after people who were coming to the Americas from Africa.
Osei was talking about
The Olmecs.
Exactly.
Right.
As Brother Osei had pointed out, the Olmecs were here. Now, we do have to understand that because of, and I think I mentioned it earlier, because of how media portrays the black identity, the African identity, there's also a long history of blacks wanting to step outside of what it is to be black.
Teach.
Because
There you go.
Native Americans, had treaties, even got, some extra benefits from the law. And so probably a lot of us in our family can look back and see maybe applications. I'm Native American.
Right.
Give me a little.
My great grandmother was
a little
Indian
less.
princess. Right.
Yeah. So there's that too. But even if you consider that, yeah, we will have to spend a whole episode on it, because even to talk about your identity, you will have to understand where your identity comes from your ancestry, to even talk about what you are. And a lot of people don't understand that. You didn't get that from an African. You didn't get that from Africa to understand in Africa, how is it that you consider yourself a Khan or, Igbo or Yoruba or whatever? Which one of your ancestors is that for you to say that you are that? Mm-hmm. That's the first step that so many Black Americans jump. Mm. So if you want to point to maybe one Native American wife that an ancestor took and then claim you're Native American, you have to first question, why are you really doing that? Right. What are you running away from? What's the heritage that you're running away from? Because if you especially have a dark complexion, you have many ancestors. So which one are you trying to favor over the next, just to avoid how you look in the world as an African? I think that would be the best answer I can give in the short. But and then we go far. Then we Israelite instead of African, we Moors instead of African, we so and so instead of African. When maybe you're just African, and you have to stand up for that. Right. Maybe use some type of African. Generally in the Art Center, we don't use the name African, and I didn't want to bring that up in this conversation either. But the point is that we can't be ashamed of Africa.
That's right.
Africa is the light of the world. Every other people knows that. The same Israelites you're talking about, they go get resources and their wealth from Africa. While they tell you, hey, look somewhere else because you guys aren't the chosen people. But somehow your continent is the chosen continent because we all there trying to get what it has. So I would say that would be my answer for now, but we definitely will come back to that question. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
I think you hit it on the head. And again, I always say when I hear this, that again, just like you said, exactly what you said, what you're really running away from is that you just don't want to be African.
Exactly.
You are any and everything other than African. You want to be any and everything other than African. If all life started in Africa, right? Mm-hmm. And so what? Your people migrated or came to the Americas and been here for 5,000 years, 10,000 years. Guess where they was at before then? Africa. Right? What's the expression? A stream will run, will never forgets its source, or something of that nature. A log can lie in a river for 1,000 years and never be a crocodile. Never be a crocodile.
Exactly.
So you can't run from what you are. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And do you have some of this other blood in you that you're talking about? Probably so. We all do. Just looking around the room, I'm sure we do. And
But even then, if all life come from Africa, the thing is that that's why it would be hard for me to say that white man is the devil, because if
I knew that was
they come from Africa, if they are intelligent enough and evolved enough and have avoided all of the traps that come for the actual, the one bringing white supremacy, because they get a lot of traps too. They've fallen from white supremacy too. If they've avoided that to know, hey, I'm from Africa too. Right. I want Africa to awaken in me. Who am I to stop that? Because Africa's the source of life. So now if somehow in national rhetoric, political rhetoric, something has you running from Africa, question that. That would be the question you have.
That's right. Without question.
Yep. Yeah, a brother one day was asking me about, if we over here now, what is it, what is it that you into Africa for? Something to that nature, because I think that there's a lot of people now saying that even those who are not denying African origins still are coming up with this idea now we're our own tribe So we don't need to look back to where we came from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
American descendants of slavery. Take Black Africa, all that out of what we call ourselves. We and that to me is just degrading. But I'm not gonna go into that terminology. But it's just to say, what I told him was that regardless of whatever we might have think that we can take pride in what our ancestors tried to build over here that they passed on to us, out of the survival or whatever, what have you, like we've been talking about, we respect all those who allow us to now be here in this moment. But if in the United States you don't have something that allows you to know how to connect with nature, that allows you to connect with your ancestors, that allows you to connect with your identity as a spirit coming into light, that allows you to connect with the divine essence that allows all this to be. If we can't find that here, we need to go where we can find it. And the place that really has preserved it most solidly intact. I mean, you can find elements in different places in indigenous cultures around the world, and we see people going for those different things. But I mean, to be honest, a lot of tribes have lost most of the core aspect of what makes them who they are, and a lot of it is kind of like a shell of it. You have the costume still, you have maybe the dance still, but the reason for the dance you don't really know anymore. So in Africa, that's
people
where
performing the dances in many instances. For them, it's just one big Broadway production.
Exactly. It's a Broadway, maybe for show, maybe for prestige, or even for just for money. As a performance entertainment. It's more so for that than any practical aspect, And I'm saying that not to disrespect, because I've also been to like sweat lodges in Mexico, and we did like a ceremony, and then it's like they called the rain and it rained like a mug. So they have things, but in Africa is where they have the most like solidly intact spiritual understanding, and let's just say. I don't like to just say spiritual because it sounds kind of spooky, like how we interpret it now based on religious influence, but just the most comprehensive understanding of reality and everything that makes it what it is, whether it's physical or non-physical, energetic or what have you. It's in Africa. It's very solid. So that's why there's value in looking there, regardless if you say your heritage is from anywhere in the world. Because we have people in the Earth Center who's from India, and they have, their villages in India. They still come to the Earth Center to learn. We have people who's coming who's, Japanese, Korean, Filipino, Native American, all these different places that we're trying to associate with. They come into Africa to learn, and so there's something to have pride in there. That's I don't think gets a lot of attention, purposely so. Because it's not part of our way of thinking, our value system in this side of the world. So it's not something that we're seeking out, but it's something that we missing so bad that we don't really even, know.
In the poem, they say when the spirit is gone, it is nothing but a dance. You know what I'm saying? So you can do what you're doing if the spirit ain't there, you just dance. You just dance, you know what I'm saying, at best.
You're dancing and without a rhythm. And the thing is that Africa is the source.
Right. That's right.
It's the source, and it's still the place where it's strongest.
That's right.
And it's the place that have seen so much
adversity
and attacks to break it, and it's still the strongest there. While it was the source. That will have to be the one holding some power.
Right.
And the thing is that those that African descendants, those that consider themselves blacks, are some of those that just are some of the only ones that don't know that. Because when you start going there and you see who's filling the airplanes to get there, you're like, where are we?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Everybody else is coming. Everybody else knows something.
Knows something. That's right.
So it's interesting. I think we have another question.
Well, I do have a comment. Could we make sure we're closer to the mic so people can hear?
Sorry.
And I can move the mic closer.
No, I can lean forward.
Well, I think we wrapping this up.
Yeah,
Marcus.
I wanted.
Is there another?
I wanted to say on that something else that I don't think people think about is that Africa historically was the last continent to be colonized by Europe. Like Asia was colonized, Australia was colonized. They went all the way across the Atlantic and colonized over there 300 years before they started colonizing Africa. So they have maybe had some presence on the coast, but they weren't able to penetrate. So that it has the least mature level of colonization or conquest has happened over there, and so that. I think that's even the reason why nowadays we feel like, it's undeveloped, because development really means like made into the image of
good colony.
The white man image.
Right.
And to say white man image, I just wanted to mention, because this has been an ongoing topic of white man being the devil. Pastor Nabi used to talk about white man all the time, but one time he made sure to take a second and explain. When he talks about white man, he's talking about a mindset.
Right.
He's talking about a way of life. He's talking about a
worldview.
A paradigm.
Worldview. Right.
So you can be whatever skin color you are and still represent that paradigm. You can be whatever skin color you are and still represent humanity. Like, I don't want to just say Africa, because we're talking about really humanity. Before we started talking about race and all of this stuff, like, we were just human beings trying to figure out how to be human beings in this world, and that's what everybody's whole culture is about. You trying to understand how to fit in with this world, how to survive and be in harmony and fit with the divine aspect.
Every civilized culture.
That's what we call it. Yeah, that's civilization.
Right, no doubt.
I mean, and then when people started to try to invent other things, that's when that's when it stopped being civilization. That's when it stopped being culture. Because right now, like Max and Apple would say, we don't have culture here. We don't have civilization here. We don't have, because you're not functioning on principles. You're not functioning on boundaries. You just whatever goes. Well, what's different between you and the animal now? So then, do you call that civilization, or do you call it something else? So I wouldn't want to mark civilization down as a concept by including certain things in that. But yeah, so it people started to take things in a different way, trying to say, okay, we can manipulate people's perception of reality based on our own ambitions. But before that started happening, it was really just about understanding. Of course, you still have human nature in it, which comes with its own baggage, imperfections, and so on. But it's still an honest pursuit. And so the honest pursuits humanity's having is just like what we need to get back to. And, that's why we keep pointing back to where that honest pursuit started, and then we can hopefully get back to that,
No, I was just going to say. But I think that's, what's the word I want to use? Because for me, right? As an African, I believe in circling my wagons and not exposing Africa to everybody and letting everybody learn. And I think that that it's for me, it's kind of like a struggle. You know what I'm saying? That concept of sharing the goodness of Africa with everybody in the world. You know what I'm saying? And that has always historically been our role. You know what I'm saying? And prior to the rise, I guess would be the right word, prior to the rise of white tyranny, you know what I'm saying, and an expansion of European expansionism, even the white people that was coming in there, the Greeks and whatnot, was talking about what Africa was. Chancellor Williams, I think it was in
destruction.
Destruction of black civilization.
Thank you. Yes.
They were going to learn.
Yes, and even said that Ethiopia was the place where their gods went to rest or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And so the way that the world is organized now, regardless of how I got there. It seemed like for me in my thinking, because I'm trying to warm up to the idea that everybody deserves the best, right? But that is a struggle for me. You see what I'm saying? It's like, no, circle our wagons. And, you know, going back to problem and challenge, right? That would be a problem. We don't even deal with it. A challenge is finding a good brother to understand the value and worth of this. But that's the principle of my Black History Month presentation, is that we've been doing this for all this time, and why hasn't Black History Month advanced us very far? Because we've been doing it wrong. You know what I'm saying? We've been doing it wrong because we need to examine why is it that everybody else is running to Africa and we as Black people is running away from Africa. The Boy Scouts, Africa, right? Out of Europe first, and then the dude from America went to Europe, seeing what the Europe dude was doing. And then he told him, I got that from the Zulu, right? You know what I'm saying? The baby carriage, where we carry the babies. The white woman said she went to East Africa, Kenya, I believe it was. She seen that and brought it back, a multi-millionaire now, right? With several different patents with it now. Thermal engineering in mud houses, if you will. What are they called? The clay houses? What's the term? Ooh.
Is it Adobe? Not Adobe. That's in there.
But the clay houses, the houses that's made, and they fast. And then what's really tripped out is that you got to go to white people to get certified to learn this stuff.
Right,
you know
right.
what I'm saying?
That's the point.
That's the
real
what I'm saying? And so it's like we got, and I'll close with this. We got numerous examples of where these people have been able to go there and see stuff. Where we talking about Africa, there's a true story. You know how when you sit in Bass Pro Shop and they have a little thing set up and you can fill out this paperwork and they're going to invite you to some place to listen to a presentation for 3 hours and you get to go to this place for free and all of this. They asked us where do we want to go, and we said Africa, and the lady was like, Africa? Yeah, you get away free trips, so we want to go to Africa, you know, and she kind of like caught herself, but it was already out the bag at that point.
No, I mean, but that's really the point, and that's what I think, you know. I want to wrap up because we can be here
all night, no doubt.
And definitely we're going to have to, you know, approach the council and the organizations you work with just to start organizing on the social level like we were talking about.
Yes, sir.
But I want to say something about that because you were honest enough to say that's really a struggle for you, and you know you got to think about that. But the fact is, the great prophet Tahotep said, when you fail to teach somebody, you give them a chance to hurt you. Meaning that if I teach you civilization, then I at least play my responsibility to take that away. Just like you teach people about guns. Now they're more responsible. It's less likely you're going to catch a stray from one of those people because you taught them, you educated them about it. So the problem is when a person with a colonizer's mind, a person with the white mentality, is now trying to control what happens in Africa. But when you have a movement like, you know, and not trying to come back to our organization, but I think that, you know, we haven't in Black America really seen yet on a whole what Masanaba coming over here meant. Because Masanaba was an initiator back home. We get a lot of people that come over here and they're like, I could teach you classes about back home. But back home, they don't initiate people. And they didn't go to kings and they didn't go to temples and say, you know what, I have this plan, I have this vision. I'm going there to initiate people. I'm opening that up to them. I've been doing it here for this many years. I'm disrespected here by different tribes. I even went into different tribes to do it. I'm going over there to do it for them now. I need your permission. I need offerings made and, you know, just in support. And he did that and brought that over here. So us controlling the context like that, then somebody wants to learn. Now I'm taking my responsibility to make you less of a threat just because I see the history maybe your people have had. I see the history maybe your people have had. What you didn't understand. Now I'm taking my responsibility to teach you. Now you won't cause me as much harm. But I control the context. It's not you coming and exploiting things you see, like the way we carry our babies or the way we eat. It's me in all of the traditional ways giving you the full initiation and picture. giving you a new paradigm. For people to see that the same way, like, well, how come you do it for this ethnic group and that ethnic group and this ethnic group, is missing the major point. We control that context. We control that your people control that context. That hasn't been done before. Even if your people, set a all black curriculum here, it was still done by anthropology, reading books from anthropologists, from white people, still done by theories that came out of maybe English, still done all of those things. This is fully, we control the context. That's where we want the whole world coming to us, because then we control the context. That's what we're looking for. You see what I mean? And I think it's going to take some time for us on this side to realize, oh, that's how big that opportunity is. That's giving us another seat at the table. It's not about, I don't want this person sitting next to me because they're different color. If it's our table, it's our table. Who cares? When it was somebody else's table and you're like, I haven't gotten room at this table, I don't want you encroaching on my room. That's a point. That point is understood. But it's your table. It's a totally different argument. It's a totally different way you need to understand it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me also add that what you mentioned about the Greeks coming to study in Africa and Kemet, and then taking that and turning it into something else, and then Master Naba taught us about all of that, and he taught us even to where we can see clearly where what we're living in today is a direct derivative out of that in so many ways. And I'll just point out one book called Politeia, or The Republic by Plato. It's like a play-by-play handbook of colonialism. That you can look and see clearly, okay, this is exactly what we're living right now.
After you got out of school.
For example, but what I'm saying is, our elders in the temple know the history, and so they know that hey, Kemet, Africa was the light for the world for so many tens of thousands of years, and at some point some people took it and did something with it. They know the history, so they are aware of it in terms of how to protect the secrets of it from the same type of usurpation. And so if that can give you any confidence that it's not just like the same naivete maybe that existed in the past, because in the past the priests and the elders in the temples, they was like, there's no way these dirty people over here are going to be able to
use this,
bring our civilization down. Like, how could that possibly happen? But we see what happened. So so we know better now. Or I don't even know if I can put myself in that because I'm still one of the people now trying to come from here to go back over there and learn, and it's very incremental, with certain things. So it's being protected in a good way. So I just wanted to say that.
Cool. Before we close it, any last statements you guys have for the listeners or the viewers?
I will only say this, that regardless of if you're Moor, Hebrew Israelite, Native, whatever, I'll go back to Malcolm's original statement with the Bandung Conference. We got one problem, and we need to solve that problem together. And so, again, back to what you were saying, we need this activity that will bring us together so that we can move forward, because they don't, what did Sam Greenlee say? They didn't divide and conquer us. They conquered the divided. And so, yes, sir. I want to make sure I want to leave on a note of unity.
Teach.
Look, I don't want nobody walking up to me.
All right. Very well. I would just leave with one of my favorite quotes. It's a paraphrase from Chinua Achebe, who's the author of Things Fall Apart. And it was put in a way that I think relates best for me. That is, until lions have historians, hunters will continue to be heroes. And so we have to understand the history. We have to understand the true history, so that we can dethrone what we're seeing as the heroes, be it white culture, be it Europeanism, be it white supremacy, that mentality, those people. I too am skeptical that they can learn, but I think we're at the point now where we have to repair, right? And I think can it be a parallel process? We repair and teach, maybe, but I do know that we are. I mean, one of Baba Hamel's quotes is that we are at war and we are losing, and therefore we must free the land and win the war. And that war has been going on for, as we've said, at least 5,000 years. And so part of winning that war is, again, getting our minds right about protecting us and protecting us here. Then maybe we can go look back and share, more. But we got to get our stuff together first. That's my opinion.
Well, we're on the same page about getting ourselves together, getting our minds right.
That's right.
That's sorely needed.
Okay, well, we want to thank you once again for tuning in. Remember, we will be broadcasting now every 1st and 15th of the month. Also, for all of those of you interested in traditional perspective, that perspective coming from Africa, we will be having some men's workshops over the next 3 months. First one will be April 20th, just to put that out there. And we will definitely be having the elders back at some point to talk about some other topic that we can bring them on for, whatever excuse we can find.
Don't need an excuse.
Just a good reason.
Just a good reason.
Right.
There you go.
But yes, we want to thank everybody, and see you next time on the Sunnyside.
All right. Thank you for having us.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I want to close by acknowledging the spirit of Masanaba, the spirit of Baba Hannibal, the spirit of your grandma, who you called out in this episode, and all of those ancestors who put in tireless work and sacrifices in trying to better our position in the world, and raise the level of quality in their community and help their community get through the war that we're in. And, all of us have to understand that we are in a war zone. We are in a marketplace in the West, and you have to move accordingly. And you have to take responsibility for yourself and how you educate yourself, because if you leave it to anybody else, if you leave, what you need for your life to anybody else, how can we,
You have an alien inside of you, and as Dr. Wilson said, an alien mind only serves an alien.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us.
Yep. Again, thank you very much for bringing us back and having this conversation. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for coming. We appreciate it, because y'all could have maybe refused and be like, forget y'all, but
that ain't African.
That ain't African.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I'm happy. I'm very happy we got to have this conversation.
All right.
All right.
Is this mic still on? That was good, man.
Yeah. Uh-oh.